Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is October 28th, YC126, and this is the Eve Universe Show! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Settle on in, sit down, like the stream, share it, comment, whatever, all that stuff. We have a big show for you today. I'm both excited and very nervous about today, because today is about how I was right, but more importantly, how I was wrong about the Deathless and everything that's coming out. We have a lot of new information. We now know the identity of the Deathless, but does it make even more questions than it has answers? I believe so. Let's see what you guys think when we're done. Wrong. Multiboxing is ruining Eve. Change your mind. I'm actually, I've gone on the record on multiple times suggesting that I believe that Eve Online cannot truly be quote unquote fixed until we have a restriction on the number of accounts that you can, like, just like you can have one alpha, you could only have 3 total accounts logged in at any given time, even if they're Omega. But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. I think that part of the problem is that we have a lot of content that's designed for people to team up to do, but because of the capacity of multiboxing, people end up maximizing their efficiency, which ends up minimizing their fun, and they end up cheating themselves and then blaming the game for not being interesting, when really the thing that makes this kind of game interesting is doing it with your friends, or making new friends while doing it, or making new enemies while doing it, etc., etc. I don't think that's possible to police. I mean, all they'd have to do is make it be a policy, and then make it like same as alphas, where it says, "Hey, you can't connect any more people." The question is that would they actually do it? And it'd be a big fight, and they probably won't do it. But the point is that without doing that, everything else they're trying to do to fix the issue is working around a cursed problem, right? Like, how do we get people to actually work together instead of just multi-box it? Anywho, not what we're talking about today. All hail the Deathless. So, okay. For those of you who have not been watching every single one of my streams since 2019, perhaps we need to catch up a little bit. I remember when auto missiles used to be useless. Now they're too good for ratting. Same with shooting a Jag with a fleet of Stormbringers. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, auto-targeting missiles have always been niche, but useful in its niche. Multiboxing is money. Yes, but as they demonstrated, especially during scarcity, is that while multiple accounts being subscribed due to multiboxing, it isn't worth killing the game over. Right? Like, ultimately, skill farming was great for CCP. People bought tons of Plex for their accounts, and they did all that sort of stuff, but it was terrible for the game itself. And so CCP has taken a lot of steps to weaken the power, or at least weaken the necessity of multiboxing to their own detriment. But what they have found is on every single case, it would seem that when they've suppressed the amount of multiboxing going on, those multi-box players get replaced by real players, potentially. Or at least that's what they've said, and that's what the numbers seem to show. But either way, that's not really the big topic of the day. The big topic of the day is the Deathless, which I forgot to bring up. I have spent... Okay, first of all, before we jump too deep into it, I do want to, like, on a real-life side of things, this last week has been a lot for me. I'm really sorry. I should have been able to go live last week, but between my my son was sick the first half of the week, and then had parent-teacher conferences, so no school for the second half of the week. Last weekend, across the street, my son's uncle, I think it is, the apartment category to him burned down, so there was a huge fiasco about that. And then last Saturday, so 2 days ago, my son's mother was on her way here to come see him and to do Halloween stuff with him when she was rear-ended by a drunk driver, and she was in the hospital. She's out now. She's okay. She has 3 broken ribs and a concussion. But the point is that there has been several reasons why I wasn't able to stream last week or this weekend like I was wanting to, but we're here now, so we're playing catch up. Let's jump into some of this stuff. Like I said, for those of you who have not been paying attention to all my streams for a long time, yeah, oh, it was terrible. Yeah, I'm very glad that she's okay, for sure, or at least she's going to be okay, I should say. Hi, puppy. What are you barking at? Probably the cat. Hold on, we might get a pet check. Hold on. Dogs and cats chasing each other. Hi. Start with the cat check. Oh, excuse me. Hi. She's unhappy. She's unhappy. Oh boy, she's very unhappy. Hold on. Full camera. Yeah, she's pissed that I've let the dog live here. Dog check. Puppy doing good. Puppy doing good. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. Look at her. She's got her eyes on the cat. All right. I hope this. Hey, man, you guys are already helping this week get better. Okay. Fighting like Triggs and Drifters. That's right. Okay. So, let's talk first and foremost about the Deathless, because we do have stuff about the AT, we have stuff about CSM, we have stuff about the new ships, and I do want to go over all that stuff, but let's be honest, a lot of the people that follow my stream, this is the thing that a lot of people have been paying attention to. So let's get caught up. The Deathless, as an entity, hey Bash07, thank you for that. 5 gifted subs. So the Deathless is a person who has kind of come into the lore starting around 2018. So I do have, in the links down below, there should be my Notion, which is what we're showing off here, the Deathless's page on the Notion. I've collected together a lot of the lore here for your guys' perusal. Maybe I might have put the wrong link. Hold on, actually, let me double check, make sure, because I probably put the wrong link on there. Oh no. Hold on. Yeah. All right, so it's the convocation.notion.site link. I just updated it. You might need to refresh or whatever, but I will also just post it in chat. You so want to come back? Hey, I mean, it's free. It's free. Free to play. All right, so okay. So the Deathless first showed up in, skipping past all this stuff, spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. The Deathless first showed up on our radar in YC118, which is 2016. So this all begins with the planet of Shandeli, which is in the Galente Federation. It's where the Yin Mei come from. So the Yin Mei and the Intaki, as far as Galente goes, are the two groups that like joined the Federation very late in the formation of the Federation. And so the Intaki managed to maintain a certain amount of their own sovereignty, which has become that's a big piece of the consternation around the occupation of Intaki now. But Yinmei, so the Yinmei people had a very strict caste system with Shindo overlords and, their own kind of, probably they wouldn't describe it as slavery, but, a caste system that was very strict. Now, in order for them to join the Federation had to accept the fact that they had this caste system. And this has caused a lot of problems. You have a lot of opinions about the new ships in the Deathless. Hey, man, I think that we will be able to chat about it quite a bit, I think. Either way, so the idea is that there was this civil war that was going on that kind of that has been going on for quite some time. This has led to a lot of little details. We'll probably touch base on it again later, but it's kind of tangential to what we're talking about here. The important thing is that there was an increase in hostilities around the equator of Shandeli, which is the main planet for the Yinmei people. And during that time, one of the ways that civil war kind of came to a conclusion, at least for now, is that kind of out of nowhere, when the Galente were showing interest in things, Intara Direct Action, Ossicon Agency, and Sekal Expeditionary Group, which were 3 mercenaries that had been hired to assist the overlords in their fighting, were pulled out by by their contractor as a sovereign non-complete clause in their contract, presumably with the Federation, right? And then later on, it suggests when we see a little bit later, we see the FIO dossier about the Serpentis military buildup that fell into the hands of Upwell, which caused Upwell to start attacking the different Serpentis structures back in 2016. This is when we first hear the word, hear the name the Deathless, right? Who's the Deathless is allegedly the guy who was associated with this FIO dossier and how it got delivered to Upwell. And it specifically says, while being confused as to the exact status of the Deathless, these reports allege this identifier was recently used in the hiring of several mercenary corporations previously active on the planet of Shandeli. So either the Deathless was in charge of them when they were on Shandeli, or after they were pulled out of Shandeli, the Deathless took over. However, the way that it seems to be written, it suggests that the Deathless was in fact involved in the entire Direct Action, Ostracon Agency, and Sekal Expeditionary Group from leaving Shandeli. And those organizations keep propping up over and over again. Like when Upwell began attacking these Serpentis shipyards, it was actually the Intara Direct Action, I believe it was, and somebody else who was involved in those attacks. So, it was very clear that, Ostracon Agency and Intara Direct Action, private military contracting corporations, were the ones involved in attacking the those facilities before the Empire freaked out because suddenly Upwell is doing this whole paramilitary thing outside of the confines of what any of the empires know about. And so they demanded that Upwell handed over that information, which is what leads to the formation of the Scope Independent Capsuleer Brokering Service, which eventually becomes the agency that we know today, which allows the various organizations to effectively bribe capsuleers to doing their own dirty work, also known as the various events that we've had since 2018, starting with the Shadow of the Serpent event. So this is all stuff that we've already known about them, and I've talked about on many different occasions about who the Deathless is. And as part of this, because of these information, because of other things too, so in 2018, he was supposedly seen and given as a 30-year-old male with a black and skull-printed bandana. He was supposedly seen in Black Rise, which caused a lockdown, but then they couldn't find him, so they released the lockdown. There's a whole bunch of hullabaloo about him And then in 2020, I think it was, is when he eventually comes out with the, like, we start to see the Mimitar and Caldari smugglers, which then leads to the Deathless interrupting the scope broadcast, which I thought was included on here. Hold on one second. I gotta look this up real quick. Which leads us to the very first time that we ever seen the Deathless. Hold on. Like, seen the Deathless, I should say. What is going on with my computer? Hold on one second. My among other things, one of my monitors started to fail, and so a very nice person got me a new monitor, but now it's 4K, and now my video card is struggling to render Eve. But, you know, whatever, we'll get there. Come on. Here we go. I imagine my sound is turned off. Let me fix that.
Capsuleers attending a session of the Interstellar Anti-Smuggling and Counter-Piracy Conference at the JITA 4TAC4 Trade Hub were surprised when...
By the way, this event that they're talking about was FanFest this year, right? So a bunch of people were at FanFest when this happened.
A Concord presentation on rising smuggler activity was apparently hijacked by...
Shit, hold on. I just fucked up my camera. God damn it. There we go. My computer's barely holding on. Let me try to fix some stuff. There we go.
The very same smugglers.
Platitudes, blandishments, lies. You of all people know that Concord and the Empires have no interests in common with you. They have done nothing for you. They shall do nothing for you. How long will you listen to their empty words? In recent days, as is their pitiful habit, Concord has made use of you to advance their own agenda. These free trade outposts you have so willingly cleared of my associates have been taken over by Concord's worst, the Cerro. Perhaps you don't believe me? Check for yourself. I have broadcast the new signatures of those sites to all. Why should you not destroy the Sorrow bully boys? They have always sought to control you. Do their bidding no more. Open your eyes. Seize your destiny. And, if you would, join me, the Deathless.
Embarrassed by this intrusion, Concord officials have refused to comment on Sorrow activity at occupied smuggler outposts, other than to state that measures are simply being carried out to ensure the complete eradication of illegal smuggling activities. Any recent improvements in the strained diplomatic relationship between the Galente Federation and the Caldari state have been overshadowed by claims that a Galente diplomat was involved in a massive spy ring operating within the Caldari state. The Caldari State's chairman, Akimaka Saraki, delivered a fiery speech in a live broadcast from the Caldari...
Man, hold on. What is going on with my computer? Hold on. Is there some way that I can turn down...
Chief Executive Panel yesterday. The scheduled speech was reportedly originally aimed at promoting interstellar diplomacy due to the ongoing JITA 4TAC4 summit. However, with state corporations and citizens expressing outrage over the new allegations, the delivered speech leaned heavily into patriotic rhetoric and evoked previous hostilities with the Galente state.
We remain Kaldari, no matter the cost.
No direct response or comments have been made by the Galente Federation so far, but Federation Navy and Customs Forces have been placed on heightened alert status. This is Alton Hovery, reporting for the Scope.
Okay. So this video in particular was a big reason why I predicted two things. One, that the Deathless was going to create a new ship line, which was going to be Minmatar and Caldari focused and developed largely by the Thucker. And two, that the Deathless was in fact a man named The Fiend, nicknamed The Fiend, but shoot. Now I feel silly. Hold on. No, these are all important things. What is his name? It starts with O. Anakori. Yeah, Anakori. So I suspected that the Deathless was Anakori because Anakori did not like Concord, did not like the Serpentis, or pharmaceutical companies, I should say. And around this same time, we have a Thucker spy/assassin who is working with the Sisters of Eve, named Sakuni, who assassinated some Concord agents, and then, or people working along with Concord, and then later on, one of the sisters involved in the Alpha Clone project, presumably to cover up some information. But he was working in tandem with Anakori, who, as the Fiend, has kind of not shown up in any of the lore since like 2004, and then he shows up again in like 2015, 2016. So of course I'm like, oh, well, yeah, Anakori, the one dude who survived the Concord attack back then, he's the Deathless, right? That makes sense. He's this connected dude. And so I've been going on and on and on about how the Deathless is in fact the Fiend, and that he's going to create this new ship line, which was Minmatar and Caldari. Guess what? Half right. So, what if I told you that this is not the Deathless, or at least not the Deathless as we know it, right? Because here's the problem with what we've learned. We've learned a lot about the Deathless in this last week. And the one thing that we've learned is that the entire time any of us has ever even heard of the name Deathless, that entire time, the Deathless has been hooked up to the Fulcrum. Let's jump into it. We go back to these logs. So starting a couple weeks ago, we have had these logs dropping called the Yosef Okada journal entries. Now, these journal entries span years of time, but each of the time periods that they span are critical moments in Eve lore history, okay? So we got to look into this. We have, in the beginning, it starts in YC110. It starts in March, April, May, and goes on to the end of the year. And then it skips ahead to YC113. And then it goes to all the way through 113, all the way through, and then a little bit into 114, and then skips another year and a half to go to YC115, 2013, and then YC117, 2015, with the final records being at the end of 2015. Okay? Now, these dates are very particular, and we can learn some things about that. Now, I've taken all of these logs because one of the things that happened this entire time, I'm like, this isn't the Deathless. This must be an assistant of the Deathless. This must be... I kept on... As the evidence continued to pile in, I was in denial. The structure that they're talking about must not be the Fulcrum, blah, 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 blah. But in the end, spoilers, the final log by him says, a world of substance, a world of dreams, a world beyond. The Fulcrum has shown me so much, and in return, it has consumed my limitations. It has taught me a new name, A mantle granted to those who it has chosen. Those who have stepped beyond the meager limitations of the body, so they exist in all three worlds. The Deathless. So, that means that Yosef Okada is the Deathless. It also means that when he says, like, I walk on endless corridors, so much has been revealed, I've climbed atop the throne, and from the seat I see beyond the limitations of my eyes. So we can be pretty well assured that by November 6th, YC117, which is 2015, the Deathless was officially wired up to the Fulcrum, right? So let's, just so we remember what that looks like. Hold on, Eve Online, Havoc.
Zarzak has been waiting. An ancient nexus, long abandoned. Now ruled by the insurgents. The fearless. The deathless. Trust is rare among our kind. Yet here you are, compelled by my invitation. I offer you a haven, a fortress, hidden from the empires. I have given it life. It feeds on me. And in return, it yields knowledge, gifts, power. Prepare your forces for chaos on the front lines. Harness the might of Capsuleers with the promise of riches. And together, we will unlock Zarzak's secrets. One by one.
Okay, so this is the Deathless as we know him today. But here's the problem. From everything that we can understand, the Deathless was already in this situation by the time the previous video was made. Yeah. Like,
And to state that
when
measures are
this
simply
video is
In
made,
me, the death.
by the time this video was made, he already was hooked up to the Fulcrum. It also means that by the time these reports about a 30-something male with black and red skull-printed bandana, by the time these reports were made, the Deathless was already hooked up to the Fulcrum. So there are multiple ways of attempting to resolve this issue. And let me tell you, I've been running around in circles with all of these ways all week. So there are a couple of things. One, he could disconnect from the Fulcrum, right? I just don't necessarily see that as being true. And the reason why is because, as people have pointed out, one of the things about the Yosef records is they put audio in the records, right? So we can actually go here and we can listen to...
I cannot sleep. But who could on a night like this? Buried for 15,000 years, and I'll be among the first to see it. Incredible. No one is more shocked than I am at the lead archaeologist's choice. I guess when she called me a reckless insubordinate, it was a compliment. Whatever her reasons.
He sounds pretty lively here. He sounds pretty normal, right? He's got a pretty normal canter to his voice. He's kind of chuckling a little bit. He sounds like a pretty normal person. If we go down to closer to when he is prepared to get into the Fulcrum, we hear,
I walk along endless corridors and see nothing but cold metal. But I feel something.
His cadence has become a lot slower. And we'll look through the logs. He has lost. This is a man who has become disillusioned. This is a man who has grown to hate those who brought, like, the very institutions that he grew up under. He's also, at this point, abandoned in this structure and is fearing that this is where he's going to die. So, but either way, you can see here, there's a very different tone to his voice. It's become a lot darker. It's become a lot slower. And it's a lot closer to the cadence that the Deathless uses in his other videos. If we jump to his dictated records, they really, like, this is when he sounds straight up like the Deathless.
A world of substance. A world of dreams. A world beyond. The Fulcrum has shown me so much. And in return, it has consumed my limitations. It has taught me a new name. A mantle, granted to those who it has chosen. Those who have stepped beyond the meager limitations of their body. So they exist in all three worlds. The Deathless.
Very slow, very plotting, very melodramatic. This is way closer to what we are used to hearing the Deathless like. Again, remember, this video is from, well, he even says, the machine consumed his limitations. There's parts of him that the machine, he said that in the other video too. But the point is that he thinks that the Fulcrum has made himself better. But the point here is that this transformation, I just want to remind everybody, this transformation happened before any of the reports that we have ever heard of from the Deathless. In fact, what's wild about this is that if you remember what I was saying before, the first time we heard about the Deathless is this issue in Shandeli, and then later on the Serpentis fleet operations. This is in June 2016 versus November 2015. So he went from a member of the SSCT, which we should probably slow walk our way through all of these logs. He went from being a member of the SSCT to hanging out with a bunch of pirates to being the Deathless. All of this took place before. So, like, he takes over, he plugs it in to the Fulcrum, and 6 months later, he's gone from being a relative nobody who's left his people and joined a bunch of pirates to being the main contractor for 3 significant paramilitary organizations operating in Shandeli in less than February, March, April, May, June. In less than 6 months, he goes from a dude hanging out with the Thucker, getting trapped in the Fulcrum, to the point of contact running the contracts for Antara Direct Action, Ostrakhan Agency, and Sekal Expeditionary Group. This is the thing that has caused me so much mental consternation, because, like, what is happening here? Is this a retcon? Is this, like, did somebody not pay attention to the lore that already existed? What actually happened? I think that there's an answer, having looked at it all. You want uppies? You want uppies? You're just trying to tear apart my chair. You want uppies or no? You want uppies? No, you just want to tear apart my chair? Yeah? This is Soria Triglav. So, I think that the secret is less about the Deathless himself and more about the Deathless's friends. And a big piece of understanding all of this is looking at what else was going on and the timing of these events. So maybe he was plugged into Fulcrum the whole time with his original body, but was using the Vanguard clones to go elsewhere in Eve. That is a big theory. So yes, it could very well be that the Deathless that we saw was in fact a projected clone. I personally believe, especially since like even in the invitation, he doesn't show himself as anything besides himself, right? So he's showing himself as this way. I personally believe that either the video that we see of him from before, it could have been recorded in the Fulcrum and they just hadn't figured out whether or not what it looked like there yet. But I think that I honestly think that the Deathless, either one of two things. Either there are multiple Deathless, because remember, let's read that thing again. It says, "It has taught me a new name, a mantle granted to those it has chosen, those who has stepped beyond the meager limitations of their body to exist in all three worlds." So there is a non-zero chance that the Deathless is not a person, but is a type of person, right? That there could be multiple people with the mantle or that have achieved the status of the Deathless, and that it's just a mantle that is maintained by people that are part of this whole thing. Another idea is that the Deathless has agents operating all over the place. We know he does. Leopold Invalari seems to have been a Deathless agent. And, so we know that there are Deathless agents operating around. It could very well be that spokespeople for the Deathless are just calling themselves the Deathless to cause confusion. It could also very well be that Concord and the SOCT have no idea what's going on, or more importantly, have no idea how to deal with what's going on. Because the other thing that we've learned about in all of this is that the SOCT in particular has known about all of this, and especially known about the Deathless this entire time. And we know this because Yosef Okada is an SOCT member who eventually defected, and that's a big reason why the SOCT seem to be trying to purchase these logs in order to cover up this information. One of the funny things about the logs that they're purchasing is that they offer different amounts for different logs, and the log that they charge that they offer the most for is the log where he's talking shit about the SOCT. So the SOCT are doing this not just to recover their own stuff, but like there has clearly been some sort of cover-up understanding of the Deathless and the Fulcrum for a while now in relationship to the SOCT. So that's something to keep in mind too as we go over this stuff. But I wanted to go over the timeline of events and kind of stitch in a couple of extra things so that way we can understand what exactly is going on. So let's go back up to the beginning, okay? In YC110, 2008, 5:29. I cannot sleep, but who could on a night like this? Buried for 15,000 years, and I will be among the first to see it. Incredible. No one is more shocked than I am at the lead archaeologist's choice. I guess when she calls me a reckless insubordinate, it was a compliment. Whatever her reason, I leave for Caldari Prime in the morning. What we could find could change New Eden forever. And then 10 days later, or 11 days later, whatever, on the 9th, he says, I was chastised today for fraternizing with the locals. Are you kidding me? Why wouldn't I? The Caldari tournaments, the Galente nightclubs, all the beautiful people, the incredible food. I have not lived until I ate Lumenwurst and Rottenbrud. We will start the dig in 3 days. And until then, I intend to make the best of my time outside of this stuffy old kits. And then the next thing that happened, the next log says in August, so now 2 months skip by. And he says, I saw a man today slump outside the rubble of a fallen house today. I asked him who he wept for. He stared at me and replied, all of us. The city has become a graveyard, and not all of its dead lie buried. So clearly, clearly something big has happened between this optimism and this pessimism, right? What happened? Well, that's really simple. The day after these logs, right? Actually, I wrote this down wrong. It's not the 9th, it's the 10th. But the day after he says that the dig starts in 3 weeks is the Empyrean Age. Hold on. Whoops.
New
Add.
The cycle of life and death was supposed to end with us.
Yeah, no kidding.
We were to be the start of a new age. A destiny of light. An Empyrean age. Yet these tombs call out to us. All the heroes and villains vanquished within cry out at once, begging for justice. We will fight for what we believe in. We will take a side, and our wrath will be furious. Welcome to the Empyrean Age.
Okay, so everything that you just saw there, the attack on Mechios, the attack on the Concord facilities, the sieging, the assault on Caldari Prime by Tibus Heth's force, all of those happened the very next day after he said that he was hopeful about the dig starting in 2 days, or in 3 days. So 2 days before this archaeological dig was supposed to start, the biggest war in 100 years breaks out. Okay, so we can go and look in the lore. We see on the Empyrean Age, we see Caldari Navy bombards Caldari Prime, dropships land on surface. Federation Navy converge on Tirjiv as Caldari mechanized infantry attacks. Mass panic in the Federation. Caldari Navy task force locks down Luminaire. Caldari citizens respond to invasion. Partisan violence erupts in state borders. Mordu's Legion mobilizes. Garissus attacks Fedmart warehouse in Vlilarir. Caldari citizens celebrate the return of the homeland. As the dust settles, countless Galentines dead on Caldari Prime. Report, Caldari Navy forces withdraw to the Citadel. Federation Navy does not engage. All of this happens the day after that log, okay? And then the next day, of course, President Foratan addresses the Federation, saying famously, "There are traitors in our midst. My fellow citizens, we will have justice." War breaks out, okay? So there is a question about so there's one piece that's lost in the sauce here. That explains why he goes from being super optimistic to being not so optimistic about things, right? But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Hold on. I forgot. There is... Shoot, now I... Hold on. Give me a second. Here, nope. There's a whole thing about this, and I should have looked it up already. There was, so in 2019, I think it was, there was multiple pretty significant dig sites. Here we go. I found it. In YC121, 2019, we see Ishikone Corporation archaeological dig in Caliquiota Mountains in early stages, but significant findings are likely. With major clearance and environmental recovery work still ongoing with the CN Shigeru Titan crash zone along Caliquiota's beach regions of Caldari Prime, the Ishikone Corporation has repeated its confirmation that significant archaeological findings are likely, but noted that the dig is in early stages. Too soon to say more about what we're looking at the crash zone, but I can say that the Shigeru Fall may have uncovered something remarkable. So we don't actually ever get a really good information about what it is that they found, but it is worth noting that the Caliquiota Mountains are just north of Arcurio, which is the second largest city on Caldari Prime. So I don't know for sure if this is the same archaeological dig site that he's talking about, but it is worth noting that Caldari Prime was a significant terraforming project by ancient, the ancient builders, as it were. So, like, several mega corporations purchased Caldari Prime and created a major terraforming organization project while the population lived below ground. So the vast majority of the Caldari population lived underground for a long time until the terraforming project was completed, and then they were able to come to the surface. And it was after that that they came into contact with the Federation. It's one of the reasons why the Federation wasn't able to detect them earlier than that. But the point of the matter is that there's plenty of opportunity for ancient structures to be on Caldari Prime. And it seems that our SOCT archaeologist happens to be there. Now, another thing that's worth noting is that the SOCT... all of this is right after, like a year after, the events of the Black Mountain Saga, which I haven't fully, dug apart yet. But the short of it is that during the Black Mountain Saga, there was the thing called the Book of Emptiness, which is a device that that can be used for mind control, that was being hunted by the SSCT against the Sisters of Eve. And so that whole thing kind of resolved just prior to Yosef starting his journey. So I don't know if these are associated with each other. I tried to create a connection there, but it didn't seem to be there. But the idea that, this stuff that he's talking about, the thing that goes wrong on Caldari Prime that messes with his archaeological dig, is certainly the beginning of the Empyrean Age War. Okay? So then... he's walking around. He's very disheartened by this whole thing. The fighting, unlike our work, continues. I was born on the lower levels of Caldari Station and Caldari Parents. We are taught that this planet is our true home. The state has decided the best way to get it back is to bomb it into dust. The Glintes are raised knowing that the star system is their home, and the best way to make it their home secure is to bomb this planet into dust. Both sides are so busy fighting over rocks and exploding balls of hydrogen that they don't even notice the lives destroyed in the process. So we're seeing the beginnings of this guy becoming incredibly disheartened and disillusioned with the leadership of the world. Then, last night, a stray piece of ordnance hit the outskirts of the city. I tried to figure out if there is a specific event that led to this. Couldn't find one. The dig site was obliterated and 1,500 years of history was lost. The contemptible arrogance, the petty waste, and for what? Why did I come here? To witness death, to lose my heart, to see a dream destroyed. There must be a lesson to learn from this insanity, but I'm too blinded by rage to see it. Okay, so we're starting to see like where his motivation and hatred comes from. Next, a shuttle is on. 6 days later, a shuttle is on its way. I should be relieved, but I can only think of the innocents we are leaving behind. We'll never know what secrets this dig held. But if our ancestors truly did arrive here from some distant star, it cannot have been for this. So, an excited archaeologist, somebody who's interested in the past, who feels that the past has answers for us, has had all of his young dreams shattered by war and conflict between the different empires. So he returns to the SOCT. 3 years pass. Well, 2 years pass. The ceremony was long, but the reception, they told me, my application for a solo expedition to scour relic sites for traces of Jovian explorers have been approved. The kit's governor made a joke about hoping it would go better than my first expedition. I managed to squeeze out a smile. The first Jove understood that a civilization is elevated by multiplicity. Their wisdom gives me hope. Perhaps by walking the footsteps of society's ancestors, I will find a new path free of petty tribalism. So this is happening. 2013 is right when Dust 514 is starting to take hold. We're seeing, yeah, this is after obviously the Apocrypha event, so there's lots of stuff with the wormholes, but this is also right before the Odyssey expansion. So this is not like, this is a few months before the big expansion that changed exploration pretty significantly, including introducing or changing the way that relic and data sites are to make them like they are now. It used to be prior to this that data and relic sites had hostile rats in them. So they changed it to that, but then they also changed it so that the wrecks were the old Terran ships from the Eve Origins video. All this happened at this time. So is this related to this? I don't know. I think that it is worth noting that they chose these very particular time periods of, Empyrean Age, Templar 1, and then later on the Drifters, etc. Odyssey is also when sleeper caches started to show up, didn't they? No, I think sleeper caches were along with Rubicon. I think. Hold on. Now I need to look. Yeah. So, well, they were Rhea, which was 2014. So that would be YC116. So this is 3 years before. Yeah. So sleeper caches came as part of the build-up to Drifters. Okay. So this guy goes out and starts to... This guy, he did his archaeological dig. The dig was fucked up because of bombing. So now he's gotten permission from the society to go out and start to do his own relics exploration. This is why I thought it might have to do with Odyssey, because he's talking about doing his own relic sites at the same time as relic sites were getting updated in the game. But either way, the search has run dry. Every site I visit has been picked over by others before me. If I'm going to break new ground, I must leave the safety of familiar space behind. My superiors would not approve, but when I return triumphant, they will surely forgive my methods. All I need is a little luck and a guide. So he decides to go deeper out into space beyond what his superiors would let him do. And it seems like things go poorly for him very quickly. In less than half of a month, we see a few things provided clarity of a barrel of a gun pressed against your forehead. It was naive of me to think that I could have just hail a caravan and swing by for a cup of tea and chat. After some apologetic stammering, the clan member holding the rifle was kind enough to not pull the trigger. They have moved me to their leader, Ronnie's ship. It is unclear if I'm a prisoner or a guest, but I am alive. For now, that feels like a win. So there's a piece to this that we're going to skip ahead because I think that there's Ronnie... I don't know who Ronnie is. I've tried to hunt for it. I've looked in stuff. I've tried to see if it's a reference to something in a book or in a chronicle. I can find no reference to who Ronnie is, but that's okay. Because later on, we see once they get into the fulcrum, or towards the fulcrum, we see them say, once, should I just skip ahead to that? Let's just keep, yeah, let's skip away, because I think that we get some information here. So, he goes into the fulcrum. We'll get to that in a minute, but it does say, we are trapped and our rations are running thin. Malaya has taken charge of the caravan. We've come a long way since we first met, but if I don't figure out something soon, she may have well pulled the trigger back then. So, what we get out of this sentence is that Malaya was not ahead of the head of the caravan up until this point, but is ahead of the caravan now. While we do not know who Ronnie is per se, we do know who Malaya is. Malaya is Malaya Harada, the caravan master of the Harada Oki, a character that we have been seeing interacting. She was the person that was managing the Drifter siege defense. She's the one who was speaking to the population during the various different news from inside of the Fulcrum. Malaya is basically in charge of the Thuckers that operate with the Deathless. So from this, what we can get is that likely this caravan that he runs into all the way back here, this is the Harada Oki caravan, and Ronnie is likely the head of the Harada Oki at this point, and this person, the clan member holding the rifle, was kind enough not to pull the trigger, and later on he says, but if I don't figure out something soon, she may have well pulled the trigger back then. So I think that it's pretty clear to indicate that the person who has the barrel of the gun pointed at him in this video, or in this clip in 2011, this is Malaya, who's one of the head people of the Harada Oki caravan at the time, and this is the Harada Oki caravan. Now, we don't actually know very much about the Harada Oki prior to this. Unfortunately, they have a tendency to just refer to Thucker clans without referring to them by name. We do know of a couple of other Thucker clans, specifically the Lakat Hro and the Vo Lakat, which are the Vo Lakat, I think, is, I might get these backwards. One of them is the caravan that disappeared during the Apocrypha event, and the other is the caravan that the people that were part of the other caravan joined. Like, I think it was the Vo Lakat. The Vo Lakat disappeared. Wait, oh, God damn it. Hold on. Let me just look it up so that way I'm not saying bad information. Yeah, so the Lakat Hro, Great Caravan, disappeared in YC111 as part of the Apocrypha event. There were members of the Lakat Hro caravan that did not happen to be physically with the caravan at the time of this occurrence, which means that they are now a people without a caravan. And so those people, the Lakat Hro that were lost, or that the Lakat Hro who lost their family, then joined the Lakat Hro. Or sorry, joined the Vo Lakat. I bet. So the reason why this is important is because the Vo Lakat caravan is both the guy who helps the Sisters of Eve find Thera, and Sakuni, the assassin from Sine Wave Alpha and Sine Wave Omega, are both members of the Vo Lakat caravan. Is that the caravan that hid the Starkman? No. This is the caravan that disappeared in the Great Wildlands during the Apocrypha event, and who the ruins of the caravan, or at least some of the caravan, was found in Thera, destroyed. So it's like, basically, when the Apocrypha event happened and all the different stars blew up, one of the systems had a major caravan of Thucker who disappeared. There was a big hunt for them. They were never found. So there are members specifically of the Volakat who are like, remember the Lakat Hro, who are dedicated to finding their lost brethren. That's what led the pilot of the Katydid, who was the guy who was helping out with the Sisters of Eve in the Chronicle Eye of the Needle, which I've done a reading of. You can check it out on the YouTubes. Either way, my point is that the Thucker caravans are very hard to pin down because there are a lot of them that are criminal. There's a lot of them who are not so criminal, whatever. Now, so one of the things that we're not sure about is how the Harada Oki, the Lakat Hro, and the Sekal clan all relate to each other. We know that they're all Thuckers, and they're all Thucker clans, but we don't know how tightly connected they all are. But we're going to be looking more at that. Okay, so Rani is truly an inspiration. All of her people are. Back in the society, everything is so rigid, so political. These Thuckers are bold and uncompromising. They tell me that each caravan is a unique culture, unbound by the rules of the Republic. It reminds me of the first Jovian enclaves, if a little less intellectual focus. Together, we have discovered more in weeks than the SOCT has in decades. A pattern is forming, and these Adavum lead the way. So by YC113, which is 2011, I think, right? Yeah. By 2011, we already have a Thucker caravan that is interested in the Adavum, that have the Adavum. The idea is that the Adavum has always been here. The Adavum that we're now finding in the relic sites have always been there. It's just we haven't known that they've been worth anything up until this point. But these guys knew early on. And the reason why this is kind of important is, hold on, once again, not nearly as much stuff as I needed to be prepared to show you guys. So hold on a second. So if we look at the news from earlier this month, when the caravan was blown up and we first learn about Adavum, we see that there is... The scope has pulled the original blueprints of the station, and the sealed area is not present in them. Thucker construction teams have confirmed it was not present when the station was built. RJD agents have revealed that there are gaps in the archive's security logs related to the maintenance corridor on which this secret area is situated. These gaps date all the way back to YC113. Following yesterday's incursion, the containment area is now sealed and empty. According to Thucker scientists, the only evidence that was once stored here are anomalous gravity stress fractures on the inside walls. So going back to that, we see that YC113 is when they're doing this. So it seems that it is actually the Harada Oki who put this stuff in Alterner in this secret facility, right? So they, in YC113, they make a secret compartment inside of the Thucker mix station, and they start stashing their Adavum there. Okay? Now that I have learned of its existence, I see it everywhere. From the first piece of evidence seemed inconsequential, the next few merely coincidental, but altogether they are undeniable. 3 empires built on this secret, and they hid it in plain sight. 2 uneven loops vertically intertwined, rendered in right angles, broken at the peak. The finite infinite. This is where things get really kind of interesting for me. Is that so? First of all, the description at the end: 2 uneven loops vertically intertwined, rendered in right angles, broken at the peak. It has been pointed out to people that what just happened? No. No, what did I do? Yeah, that is basically a description of the Jovian insignia, right? We have 2 uneven loops. We have a big one on the top and a little one on the bottom. They are intertwined and rendered in right angles, right? In the Yosef Okada journal entries, that logs here, they have a picture that they put here. But I don't think that this describes the situation. I don't know where this image came from. I don't think it has any. I don't think it's a good image for it, because of the description about like rendered in right angles and broken at the peak. So it seems that this basically what we're seeing here. Oh, it's AI generated. Okay. What we're seeing here is that there is a secret that the Jovians have known about. He talks about 3 empires. Guess what? There have been 3 Jovian empires so far. So they're saying that the Jovians had a secret. It was related to the Atavum, and something about that secret is embedded in the Jovian logo itself. Something about the finite infinite. Okay? So this is what... At this point, we are scratching the surface of what the heck all of this is. Now, it's important to note that one of the things I've been talking about since the Drifters first showed up, and especially since the Triglavians first showed up, is this idea of the precursor crisis. When CCP, back in like 2015 or whatever, I feel like they decided to do more stuff when it comes to the Jovians, right? There's this there was a big strong interest in the Jovians. However, the Jovians as they are today, the Jovian Directorate, is a shadow of their former self. And so one of the things I think CCP did was kind of get rid of the current Jovians through things like the Caroline Star event, etc. And instead, we are focusing more on when the Jovians were cool, right? First and Second Jovian Empire. Particularly, the end of the Second Jovian Empire is a period of time that is known as the Shrouded Days. This is by far the biggest mystery in the EVE Online universe. What happened during the Shrouded Days? It seems, depending on which version of the canon you're looking at, that the Jovians entered into the Shrouded Days a relatively intact people, united by Myko Bor into an empire again after it was shattered by the Elders in the First Jovian Empire. The Second Jovian Empire is going strong, and then the Shrouded Days happen, and in the end, they walk away with the Jovian disease. The Sleepers have now escaped to Anoikis, and the Triglavians have fled or were imprisoned in Pochvin. We don't know what led to these things happening, but clearly it was something catastrophic. And it has been something that, like, I think that is the big mystery that CCP has been trying to kind of, like, sculpt around and poke at through all of this. And so I think that this is a big piece to that, where it's basically like, well, you know, this goes back to the SOCT and talking about the War of a Million Lies and all of this other mysterious stuff that has kind of come out through things like inheritance, etc. I think that Joseph Okada began to piece together the secrets. There's something going on, and it has to do with the Fulcrum, and it has to do with the Jovian empires. So, and it has to do with these Atavums. So he figures it out, and he starts to piece it all together and look into it for himself, along with his buddies with the Thucker. Okay, so then he starts to figure this out, and he goes back and he reports to his main office of the SOCT. I am shocked, and for that reason, I know I have been a fool. I thought that my superiors would chastise me for associating with criminals. Instead, I am ordered to betray their trust. They pretend to be interested in the well-being of children, but I see the truth. They will erase their culture and turn innocents into spies. The 5th point of Concord Star is just as corrupt as the other 4. The secrets I have learned are not for them. I leave their hallowed halls behind, never to return. So, the 5th point of Concord Star is the Jovians. Now, with Inheritance, which happens after 2014, or YC114 rather, 2012, the Jovians hand over their authority over to the SOCT. So he must be talking about the Jovians as a whole through the SOCT, right? When he's talking about this stuff. But I don't really know what he's talking about, like when it comes to the well-being of children. Although obviously the SOCT have their own very altruistic bent, and the SOCT have an academy. Like that's one of the things that they're mostly known for, is educating some of the most powerful children in the whole cluster. SOCT recruit children to teach. Yeah, exactly. So, but remember also the SOCT are directly implicated in the War of a Million Lies in inheritance. So, which the War of a Million Lies is also allegedly part of what's going on with Sakuni in the Odyssey, or in Sine Wave Alpha and Sine Wave Omega. All these things are kind of coming together. So what this shows is that, like, he tries to report back to his people. He expects them to be mad that he's been... So remember, he goes out to try to find out answers. He can't find answers the easy way, so he goes deeper. And he says, I hope, it's one of those things, like, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? So he goes out to go find a mystery. He figures out some crazy shit about the history of the Jovians, their technology, and this device known as the Ativum. He goes back to talk to the SOCT about it, expecting to have to make excuses for working with the Harada Oki and the Thuckers. And instead, the SOCT seem totally cool with what he's done, and in fact, asking him to be even shadier than what he was prepared to be, which was like he's seen. Remember, this is a guy who is fascinated by the First and Second Jovian Empire, but is increasingly disillusioned with modern politics. And so with all of this going on, he's like, well, fuck. These dudes that I grew up with are just as corrupt as everybody else. I'm out. A year and a half later, he says, I never thought I'd be so grateful to be back in my bunk. For the last 3 days, I've been held hostage by some ambitious conmen, but I was not alone in my cell. We spent 2 days in silence before I blurted out everything to her, all my grand dreams, the final confessions of a dying man. I thought she would laugh. Instead, she told me it was a fine dream, but worth nothing if I died here. Then she told me that she had a plan. Now our captors are dead, and I have a new ally in Soldrin. All in all, worth a few days at death's door. No idea what event this could possibly be tied to, but here we see the rise of this character named Soldrin. The things that we can figure out, because of the fact that he's so peaceful with everybody else later on, that clearly these conmen are not the Harada Oki. This is not the Thucker caravan that he was part of. So he goes to SOCT, and he tries to leave them, and then about a year and a half later is his next report, and he's been imprisoned for 3 days. So we don't actually know much about who imprisoned him, how he got there, what happened, but we do know that they defeated their captors, and he now has his new ally in Soldrin. That might be important. So then, next, 2 years later, we now are talking about YC115, right? So, or sorry, YC117, so 2015. We're now talking about the very beginnings of the drifters, right? We're talking about Caroline Starr time, right? The society in its arrogance believes that it has learned all of the secrets of its masters, yet they do not know the truth of what they keep locked away, let alone the location of the key. Now the passages have collapsed and the secret buried. It is the jealous act of the diminished civilization, a meager span of light years, yet completely unreachable. However, if I have learned anything on my travels, it's that the boundaries of the impossible diminish as perspective grows. The great divide we must cross is not one of space, but our own ignorance. What is happening at this time? Well, what's happening at this time hold on. A video many of you have probably seen before.
There is a strange, I don't know what you call it exactly, anomaly, light anomaly, a star anomaly. And apparently the closer you get to Jove space, the better you can see it.
It has been nicknamed Caroline's Star.
Whatever happened there is massive.
What caused that whole thing to happen? Jovian stargates have gone offline.
The circadian sleepers have also been appearing.
All those things have been scanning everything that comes near them.
The unidentified structures that have been popping up and disappearing.
They are listening to you.
Preparing to explore, preparing for war.
Is it possible that the sleepers have found a way to break away from the construct?
There's no telling what they might do out of self-defense. Maybe the sleepers are the ones needing the body parts so that they can reconstruct bodies, because their actual bodies have withered away.
You're actually correct, Jeff. So to Jeff's point, let me pull up something else real quick. Keep the scope, Caroline Star.
Eden. What was initially thought to be a sudden, massive stellar news of a stellar anomaly rocks New Eden. What was initially thought to be a sudden
So we see YC117-0206, and we see that this is YC117-0206. So he is writing this on the same day as this news broadcast. Just keep that in mind.
massive stellar explosion, nicknamed Caroline's Star after the pilot who first spotted it, the distant anomaly has since baffled the scientific community. Shortly after its appearance, a team of astronomers triangulated its location, suggesting that these are the remnants of the star W477P. Located deep within Jove's space, the star was previously believed to be stable and not massive enough to cause an explosion of this scale. However, its unreachable location eliminates all possibility of confirming the actual cause. Scientists also remain puzzled by the anomaly's sudden, simultaneous visibility throughout New Eden. According to physicist Balti Katai, starlight appearing simultaneously across all systems in New Eden doesn't make any sense. The energy required to create such an event is incomprehensible. Given the unusual nature of the anomaly and the lack of any conclusive scientific explanation, its existence has inspired rampant speculation from all quarters. Popular theories explain it as either the discharge of a Jove superweapon against a Sancha invasion, a herald of the prophesied coming of Bob, or a sign of the impending apocalypse. We'll have more on this as the story develops.
Yeah, so there was definitely some crazy space-time magic going on that involved the Caroline Star being visible everywhere. But I digress. So we see that he's not saying that they're not saying that the SOCT caused this happening. We already know that, like, the Stargates getting shut down was part of the explosion of Caroline Star. But yeah, we see 14 days later, when Soldrin showed me today's newscast, a shiver ran through me. Their vessels are pale imitations of the original, but there is no mistaking their design. Despite the Third Empire's selective memory, my research has revealed the horrors of their forebearers. Any who would adopt the mantle of those dark days is a threat to us all. The Empires are scrambling to understand these drifters, but I know what they seek. They have awoken just as the gates to paradise slammed shut. Should they find a way in before we do, true tyranny will return to New Eden. And this has to do with like a big piece of what I think, like I've been talking about since a long time, that this entire precursor crisis situation is kind of leading, like the grand prize is access to Jove space, right? The stargates to Jove space were shut down. He's referring to those as the gates of paradise slamming shut at the same time that the drifters show up, right? What we actually know is that the power, the violent explosion of W477-P was funneled through the lattice, the Dyson lattice that it had, and basically pumped a bunch of energy into the stars in the inner workings of Anoikis, blowing those systems out, which is what caused the shattered wormholes to appear. But it also caused the Jovian stargates to go offline, and they suspected that, like, the entire Stargate network would have been shut down if not for the fact that they physically removed the connections between the Jovian stargates, Jovian space, and our area of space, because the power surge basically went through the sympathetic links between the different stargates. Ow! My dog's nipping at my heels, literally. Hold on. Yeah. You want back up? Oh. You want to growl? You want to grumble? You want to be grumpy? Come on, Zoria. So this kind of implies that he thought that the answer was in Jove space, right? He goes, from site, then we see 8 months later, from site to site, we trace the lines and connections and discovered a point of convergence. Now we just need to reach it. The circle of trust has expanded more than I ever could have hoped. Together, we have gazed further in the myopia of New Eden's empires allows and caught a glimpse of the wisdom of the past. Tomorrow we'll pass through the gate and take our first step towards crossing the Great Divide. I cannot sleep, but who could on such a night as tonight? So, in his process of researching and discovering the truth behind the previous Jovian empires, they find the fulcrum, right? The centerpiece of Jovian design. So they trace the connections. It leads them to the location of the fulcrum, and they're about to step into it. Then comes the next post, which is the one that I was referring to earlier, which is, this is all my fault, my arrogance, my hubris. It has cost us too much. This is not the time for tears. We have found refuge inside of the greatest discovery of our age. I could spend the rest of my life exploring it, but as it stands, that won't be long. We have been trapped and our rations are running thin. Malaya has taken charge of the caravan. We've come a long way since we first met, but if I don't figure out something soon, she may as well have pulled the trigger back then. Somehow this place has survived the forces outside. If we can understand it, perhaps we can too. So basically, they discovered the fulcrum, but upon entering into the system, the massive gravitational forces around Zarzak begins to threaten their ability to survive. And so they do manage to get to the fulcrum and get into the fulcrum, but the whole system is hostile to them at this point. So they've managed to get themselves stranded inside of this Jovian structure in the middle of a gravitational hellhole. I walk along endless corridors and see nothing but cold metal, but I feel something. It's like an eye on your back of your neck when no one walks behind you, or a whisper that fades when you listen too closely. I know it watches me, waiting. I just don't know what for. This goes into a point where it's just like the fulcrum seems to have a personality of its own, right? Like the fulcrum has a desire, and it's shaped the Deathless. So that is the final record. One of the things we can look at, if we can see, like, so back when he was with the Jovian, or with the SOCT, he was the assistant archeo whatever title. And then when he goes off on his own, but is still part of the SOCT, he's just referred to as Doctor. And then once he joins the Harada Oki, he's just known as Yosef Okada. And it says that these records go from having the SOCT branding on it, like this one, to having the Satori Hadagoru, or whatever, Satori Horigu Epistemetics, which is another Deathless Circle member. So they're keeping track of things after that point. And then the final 2 logs are dictated, because these are the logs that were written after he was hooked up to the fulcrum. He could no longer like write it down himself. He dictated it to someone else. So much has been revealed. I have climbed to the top of the throne, and from this seat I see beyond the limitations of my eyes. I have pushed back the storm. I can open the gates. So he's now taken charge of the fulcrum, which allows him to kind of control the system of Zarzak a little bit better. These are our first steps. Other will follow. I can see a path now. We must but walk it. Those who journeyed here beside me will become the inner circle of our great movement. Together we will free the people of New Eden, no matter the cost. And then, of course, the log, a world of substance, a world of dreams, a world beyond. The fulcrum has shown me so much, and in return it has consumed my limitations. It has taught me a new name, a mantle granted to those who it has chosen, those who have stepped beyond the meager limitations of their body, so they exist in all 3 worlds. The Deathless. It makes sense that he would work with a corporation called Epistemetics. Yeah, that's true, actually. So that's an interesting point. We did look up this before. Epistemetics means the interdisciplinary study and knowledge of human information processing, the formal techniques of logic, linguistics, philosophy, and psychology. As in, like, epistemology, right? What is the difference between epistemetics and epistemology? Epistemetics merely refers to knowledge, justification, or belief, or epistemological refers to subjects in which study of epistemetics matter. That was a good bite. That got me real good. I'm gonna lock you up soon. Don't stop. So if we go in game, the Puffy loves his chew toy. Yeah, my hand. I have chew toys. I definitely got scrammed. Ow. Hold on. I had to grab my my rope toy, so that way the puppy will play with that. When the puppy falls asleep in your lap and you just sit there to not wake it up and fall asleep too, is that capturing? Yep, that's true. Just a complete parasite of energy. Anywho, so if we look at the Deathless Circle, they have Deathless Custodians. Hold on. We have Deathless Custodians, Deathless Wraiths, Harada Oki Caravan, and Satori Horigu Epistemetics. So the Harada Oki, we've talked a lot about them so far. In the past, the renegade Harada Oki Caravan was considered to be little more than a pirate fleet preying on anyone unfortunate enough to cross their winding path through the stars. While this view contains an element of truth, the Harada Oki have certainly carried out colonial raids and taken ships for plunder in their time. The reality is that they are primarily hard-headed pragmatists with a strong emphasis on the practicalities of survival in deep space. While this has meant putting their interests before those of others on many occasions, it is inculcated in them a deep communal sense of loyalty and admiration for prowess in any skill useful for living in space. They disdain the Mimitar Republic and consider the Thucker tribe's leaderships to be fools. With deep links to Thucker organized crimes and other so-called clanner renegades of Thucker society, such as the infamous Sekal clan, the Harada Oki have been the target of Republic and Concord law enforcement agencies. With the emergence of the Deathless Circle and its membership of the organization, the Harada Oki Caravan has definitely declared itself an outlaw group beyond the pale of the Republic and tribal law. So, what we can see here, yikes, is that, so the Harada Oki is a direct connection to the Sekal clan. Cool. If we look at Deathless Custodians, quietly founded many years ago with the injection of untraceable capital, the Caldari Corporation, origins of Satari Horigu epistemetics. Oh, no, this is, sorry. Yeah, no, this is the Deathless Custodian. Would seem to make it an unusual addition to a coalition of smugglers and mercenaries. The corporation was recruited to the Deathless Circle for its long-standing expertise in advanced faster-than-light propulsion, communication technologies, accepting readily given the irresistible prospect of access to rare and ancient Jovian technologies. Named with an old Rada concept phrase meaning razor of deep understanding, or alternatively waking blade, the Satari Horigu epistemetics is a corporation with a diverse membership that has always emphasized free movement of technology and information for whoever is willing to pay the right price, regardless of national affiliations. Yeah, that is okay. That is Satori Horigu. I thought that was okay. Yeah, that's the full. Okay, got it. Never mind. I'm dumb. And then if we go to Deathless Custodians, it says the Deathless Custodians are primarily for primary engineering and logistical wing of the Deathless Circle. Notably, are responsible for maintenance, expansion, and defense of the ancient Jovian outpost known as the Fulcrum. The Custodians are their own research and development group focused on the Fulcrum, Jovian stargates, and other noticeable sites in Zarzak's system, but also work closely with other divisions of the Deathless Circle. While their most cutting-edge research and deepest delvings into technological treasure house that is the Fulcrum are closely guarded from prying eyes, the Custodians are rumored to be working on projects to expand the capabilities of the Fulcrum, develop new spaceship technologies, and even advanced cloning techniques. If there's any truth to these whispers, it would seem that the power of the Deathless Circle is set to grow even further. Great. So we have, as our two major groups, we have the Harada Oki Caravan and Satori Horigu Epistemetics. Now, it is clear from the logs that the Satori Horigu Epistemetics came pretty early on in the transition. Hold on. Real space, virtual space, and something beyond, maybe quantum existence. Yes, they are the ones behind the Tech 2 ships, or the new ships and the new breacher pods and stuff. That's true. Almost certainly. So, okay. Where was I? What was I going to say? Shoot. So, the question then becomes, one of the questions is, who is Soldrun, right? And there is a suspicion that the Soldrun is someone we kind of already know. This is a person that we have kind of, I've referred to as Alpadirch before because of the fact that this picture had her labeled as such. But this is a girl that we've been tracking for quite some time. She was in the Caldari video. She is the bartender when Leopold and Esri Hokozotsu gets outed for their spy stuff. And of course, she is the lady
Let's see it.
I bring promise of a brighter future for us all. This is an invitation.
really interesting point, though. Although, I don't know, like, it's kind of hard to see, but you can, like, it seems at least... Hold on. Yeah, it seems as if her eyes are black, which is an interesting point. Like, the wizard brings up an interesting point. These guys have had access to the fulcrum for quite some time. So this could very well be the reason why we have seen the Deathless outside of the fulcrum, and we do see her, is that they could have easily have used the fulcrum to make clones for themselves to go and safely interact with people in the outside world. Either way, this person is kind of showing up over and over and over again as a fairly significant character for one that has never been named or like addressed before. She's shown up many, many times. I've done many videos following it, all that sort of stuff. So we do not know for sure that this is the person. What's her name? We don't know for sure if this is Soldrun, but if it is, it makes a lot of sense. So let's look at this for a second. One of the main places that the Soldrun was found. Hold on, Eve Online Caldari. In this video of the Caldari state, and he's talking about everything.
Cold wind remembers the darkest of days. When the rains of our world became laced with fire. One warrior's fierce duty seared a path to our future. The ultimate sacrifice made in blood and steel. We remain Caldari, no matter the cost. Everything we are.
Look at her. She's right here. There is no good reason why she's in this trailer. This is the moment where we realized that there was something going on with her. This was a character. Okay, so just to remind everybody, the very first time we ever saw her was when CCP first put EVE Online on the Epic Games Store. For some reason, she was like the main character in the picture for EVE Online. And so, like, this is something that has caught our attention really, really early on because her suit is really cool and everybody wanted it. And it's a it has very specific looks to it, right? And we see it coming up over and over and over again. And I've wondered whether or not it was like it was a standard model. Like, that's why she shows up as Alpadirch when they needed to show an example of how they were going to redo the UI. Whatever, just because they have her. But this is a totally different, like, having it be part of a pre-rendered CGI video like this, it means that they had to have made a high-quality model of her. For what? And again, she's also the bartender during the meeting between Esri Hyakuzotsu and Leopold and Valari. So she seems to be one of the most trusted people in the Deathless, and we have no idea who she is, which is why a lot of people have started to think that this is, in fact, Soldrun. Now, why does this matter? Because there's a missing piece to all of this, right? We know where the connections with the Thucker came from, right? He runs into the Harada Oki. He runs into the Harada Oki, and they take him in. Blah, blah, blah. But we do not really know how Satori, the other place, the other people, Satori Horigu Epistebetics comes in, right? Let's actually look at this for a second.
The ceremony was long.
Yeah. So this video, he's still part of the SSCT. You can see the SSCT bannerhead.
The search is run
SSCT,
dry.
SSCT bannerhead.
Few things provide clarity.
SSCT, SSCT bannerhead. He still sees himself as being part of the SSCT here.
Ronnie is
I'm
true.
working. See? Still SSCT.
Now that I've learned of its existence, I see it everywhere.
Still SOCT, right? Already have met the Harada Oki, has done stuff with their caravan, learning stuff with them, still considers himself SOCT. It is not until the SOCT asks him to betray his friends
I'm shocked
that he gives up completely.
And for that
and he
reason,
starts calling himself,
I know
or he gives up the letterhead. And at the very bottom, we see Satori Horogu Epistematics Interface. So when he leaves SOCT, he begins working with Satori, or at least it would seem so, right? Now, this is where things get kind of complicated because that means that this is happening too early. However, I think that this could possibly be because those logs are just being maintained by somebody else later. It doesn't necessarily mean that he was with the Satori by that point. What I think is that I think that Soldrun is his connection to the Caldari. Like, he is Caldari too, but she has connections to the Caldari criminal underworld. Hey, what's up, Punch? Why is this important? This all goes back to the question: how did the Deathless have command over the mercenaries in Chandeli 6 months after being trapped in the Fulcrum? And the answer is, I think that when the Deathless becomes the Deathless, he basically gains access to a lot of the criminal connections of the people he is already associated with, right? He then talks about how, Soldrun shows him the stuff about, Soldrun shows him the Drifter stuff, etc. And then afterwards he says, the circle of trust has expanded more than I ever could have hoped. I think that what we're seeing here is that he now has contacts from Soldrun to the criminal underworld of Caldari, and contacts through Malaya Harada in the Harada Oki for Thucker, and he's starting to pull these different groups together to form his own inner circle, which uses connections to the Thucker, which leads him to the Sekal mercenary group, and through this Caldari agent, he has access to the Ostrakhan agency. Not Ostrakhan agency, Intara Direct Action. There is another piece to all of this, which is the Krulifer organization. There's, right before all of this happening with the Deathless, there was a Thucker group that broke out Krulifer, who is a criminal from the Thucker, who later becomes the Krulifer organization, which is both one of the Mimitar or Thucker mercenary groups that was involved in Dust 514, but it's also Sekal and Krulifer worked together during their turf war against the Angels. So we're really seeing where the Deathless got his power base from, right? So if he has connections with the criminal underworld of the Caldari and the criminal underworld of the Thucker, then that puts him in position to become their front man, especially if he has now access to some Jovian structure that lets him communicate and do things in places that he normally wouldn't have been able to do. So I think that the reason why the Deathless becomes so highly connected so quickly is a combination of the fact that he already had connections with these different criminal underworld, and as the owner and operator of the Fulcrum, can offer them secrets and answers that no one else can. And so we see him begin to create his network that would eventually become the Deathless Circle. Couple more things to talk about when it comes to all this. First of all, one of the interesting things about all this, if we look at YC117 1108, and we go to the timeline of events, we go to the New Eden News, and we see here's some real tinfoil. Ready? What year is it? It's YC117. On the 8th of September, YC17, the Deathless becomes the Deathless. 10 days later, Upwell is founded. There's a lot of agencies involved in the Upwell that has always been kind of suspicious. We see a connection between, so it's Chemeltech, Eifer & Co., Intaki Bank, Mortis Legion, Yitri, Zor & Sons. All these people start to get really, really involved in weird spacey stuff at the same time that they are beginning to form the Upwell Consortium. Remember, at the end of Inheritance, when Matashi Reich, the head of the SOCT, who knows about Yosef, I cannot stress this enough, that one of the things that's really fucking important whenever we look at any of this stuff from now on is that the entire time that Matashi Reich has been running around doing all this crazy shit, he, as the head of the SOCT, is aware of the Fulcrum, is aware of the Deathless. This is all like secret stuff that he is part of the group that is covering up and trying to, get power over. His question, which has always kind of confused me and other people too, in the Inheritance Chronicle, right? The Inheritance Chronicle, which is one of the most important chronicles in the history of chronicles, we see a bunch of information. It's where we learn about Caroline Starr. It's where Matashi Reich, as the SST, becomes one of the 5 points of the Concord Star, which is, of course, an interesting thing because the Deathless refers to that, right? He says, blah, 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 where is it? The 5th point of the star, right? Matashi Reich has also referred to themselves as the 5th point of the star. He says, it is quite simple. The Society of Conscious Thought has inherited the mantle of the Jovian Directorate. From this point onward, we are the 5th point of the star. What does he do? What does he ask? The very first thing that Matashi Reich tries to figure out once he gets information to the most secretive inner council in New Eden, besides his own, what does he ask? What can you tell me about the Upwell Consortium? So this shows that, at the very least, Matashi Reich, just after finding out that Jamil Sorum is in fact infected by an artificial infomorph, and the drifters attack and kill her, and all this other shit happens, his question is, what is going on with Upwell? There is something mysterious about Upwell from the very beginning. Remember that now the major people operating against the Deathless is Upwell. The main people who, like the Arkhambine, who are the foot soldiers now of the Deathless. The Arkhambine defected and joined the Deathless as part of Havoc. Who did they defect from? Mortis Legion, the Upwell Consortium. These guys know what the hell is going on. This is the War of a Million Lies in the modern day. There is a secret here, and there are people that know about this secret, and the Deathless has been trying to learn more about it, and there are agencies that have been trying to cover it up, and this, it seems at least, all of this is at least somewhat related, which is why I think it's really interesting that, like, if you track the very first thing that the Deathless does as the Deathless that we know of is, on behalf of the Upwell Consortium, get them the dossier about the Serpentis buildup, and then attacks those very places with the Ostakon Agency and Intara Direct Action, which is, of course, it would seem, the Deathless's major agents at that time. So, or sorry, not even Ost. I think it was I think it was with Sekal. No, it was. One source speaking to Impetus reports that via encrypted identity masking hologram provided documents indicated that this consortium involved the Ostakon Agency and Intara Direct Action private military corporations. Oh no, that's when it becomes the agency. My bad. Yeah, believed to have been carried out by Intara Direct Action Ostakon Agency, these raids were primarily focused on Serpentis shipyards. So it seems like one of the very first things that the Deathless does once he becomes hooked up to the Fulcrum is he gets this information about the Serpentis capital shipyards, goes to Upwell and says, hey, you all don't like the Serpentis. Because remember, Upwell does not like the Serpentis. The Serpentis were the people who did hostile takeover on Outer Ring excavations. The leader of the former founder of Outer Ring excavations is also now the head of the Upwell. So basically, Yanni creates ore, makes trillions of ISK mining spodumene in Outer Ring, founds this organization, Outer Ring Excavation, hands it over to his buddy. He has Mortis Legion does the security forces for him. He hands the corporation over to his buddy. His buddy uses Mortis Legion to attack the Angels, I think it was. Yeah, the Angel, or the Serpentis, rather. To attack the Serpentis. So then Mortis Legion, the proxy of Ore, and the Angels, the proxy of the Serpentis, fight each other. In the end, the Serpentis, upset by this, perform a hostile takeover. Well, first of all, Mordu doesn't like the fact that they were used this way, so there becomes tensions between Outer Ring excavations and Mortis Legion, which leads to Serpentis doing a hostile takeover and gaining ownership of Ore. All of this is after Yanni's already gone. He reappears like half a decade or a decade later as the new head of Upwell, and the very first thing that they do is buy back Ore from the Serpentis and launch simultaneous attacks on Outer Ring excavation facilities by Mortis Legion, killing everyone they possibly can in order to try to track down the secrets known by the Serpentis from Outer Ring excavations. Okay, so that's kind of all on this. This is all happening at kind of the same time, right? How can they own Ore if they are considered outlaws? Because they're still business people. It was an open secret that the Serpentis owned Outer Ring excavations. They had a controlling stake. Here.
Mordu's Legion and our combined forces have launched simultaneous attacks on key Serpentis-controlled ore stations across the Outer Ring region. The assaults appear to have captured all stations in swift, surgical executed operations, with most of the fighting already winding down. The same tactic was applied during all of the captures. Mordus used their fast ships to warp in and immediately throw out warp disruption fields to prevent any escapes. The importance that Mordu ships seem to have placed on destroying all ships attempting to escape somewhat contradicts the statement released by the Upwell Consortium today. stating that the main objective of the operation was to return the control of the stations and OR itself to the rightful owner and founder of OR, Yanni Sar Arteo. Once the space had been secured, shuttles carrying our combined mercenary forces warped in and entered the stations. In most cases, the station personnel surrendered without a fight. It is expected that OR will announce it is joining the Upwell Consortium as a full partner later today. This is Lena Amber, reporting for The Scope.
Now, the Serpentis and the Guristas and all them are able to operate in Empire space, and they have financial ties throughout the empires. Now, they are seen like that's like saying, wouldn't the United States, like, the mafia earns runs certain businesses or whatever, right? Secretly. While the United States could theoretically investigate them and potentially try to arrest them for criminal actions or whatever, the fact that they own those businesses, unless they can somehow tie it together, it might be difficult for them to act upon it. And it's kind of that sort of way, right? They're a criminal organization, but they also do things in the normal world, especially if those things entrap other people and make it complicated. A good example of this is actually Ronin Shipyards. Ronin being a major leader of the mob with Vegas casinos is actually a really good example. But so Ronin and Ronin Shipyards was failing at one point, and the Serpentis kind of stepped in and helped Ronin right the ship. There are secret connections between, especially the Guristas and the Serpentis in particular. I guess angels are pretty good at this too, is being a corrupting influence within the empires and their operations. So yeah, the Serpentis are a criminal organization, but if they buy a controlling stake in OR, I mean, they've got a controlling stake in OR. What do you do? What do you do? That's capitalism, baby. So, yeah. The other thing to keep in mind during all of this is there are other agents involved as well. So, at around this same time, we have Fatal and his boys with the quartermaster. Let's see. Rodin? Yeah. Did I say Ronin? Did I say it wrong? My bad, if I did. Where'd my... So Eve Valkyrie came out in YC118. So by the time Valkyrie started and the quartermaster was active, the Deathless was already the Deathless. Which leads me to the idea that when the quartermaster says that he doesn't what is it? Hold on. The quartermaster, this is from October 2017, so YC115? Wait. So, I'm sorry. I'm so dumb. Did I just get that backwards? Did I do my math backwards? Is that what just happened? Gotcha. Where did it go? Yeah, that'd be YC119. Yeah, okay, never mind. I'm dumb. That's after all of this stuff. Yeah, the schism was fatal subtraction. That's true. What you're saying is that John Deathless is about to send a fleet of cloaky ships with coked up Jovian war clones to destroy Upwell. Kinda. So, all right. So around the same time, we see the quartermaster rise up. He says he doesn't take sides, but he does take orders. And he says that about the same time that this guy has enough power that there was a Stargate under construction, and at the last second, they get the Stargate to be realigned to a different location to lead to a different place, which led to a secret Thucker facility, which was keeping track of a drifter site. So once again, we're seeing the Thucker, and we're seeing somebody particularly interested in the Thucker and the drifters in the quartermaster. And we do know that the quartermaster is working with the Deathless. We just don't know for how long. It seems like there is a reasonably good chance that the quartermaster has been working with the Deathless since the very, very beginning, which could also be the reason why the Deathless, through his contacts of Leopold, was able to kind of weasel his way in to senior leadership of the Guristas when Estri Hekazotsu is complaining about Leopold. She says, where is it? I completely lost track of what I was talking about. He also used the agency to get his point across. Oh God, I'm trying to remember what I was trying to think about with the Deathless, or with the quartermaster. Oh, right, never mind. I remember what I was trying to go with. She says, yeah. Afterwards, met the Peacock in their usual place. I don't know why he insists on using that bar. He'll get us caught sooner or later. Past the latest news on Firebird. As usually, tried to get some data out of me there and then. Does he think I'm crazy? Does he think I carry it around on me? I don't know what the rabbit sees in him, but I'm saddled with the guy as a handler. I just hope that making a record of these security lapses so I don't... I'll just keep making a record of these security lapses so I don't... blah, 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 blah. So the whole point is that she is forced to use Leopold as the point of contact, and she's always kind of questioning why this guy is being trusted by the rabbit. And it was interesting because, like, it seems that Esri was sort of betrayed in a way, because, like, you know, this guy was very lax, and then suddenly she gets caught and she has to escape and all this stuff. But then the next thing we know, she's kind of come around to the Deathless and all them. So man, I keep forgetting my point. What oh, right. So the quartermaster reveals the fact that I think that the Deathless was starting to make inroads with the Galente relatively early. It is actually a really interesting idea that Esri was clone-jacked by Fatal. I hope that we get some sort of information that's like, that's I like that theory a lot. I remember you telling us that the in-game agency is compromised. It really does seem like the Deathless has control over the agency, or at least, you know, more control than anybody would like. There also is really strong connections between the Deathless and the Galente Federation for some reason. Like during the Shadow War, we saw what we imagined to be Deathless agents, Deathless smugglers were associated with that, and they were allegedly selling the tech. And there's always this question about who they were selling it to, but it was a pretty strong implication that they might have been selling it to the Federation. Leopold and Valari also did show up in the lore for a short period of time after being exposed as a Deathless agent. Yes, there is an interesting thing about the Deathless and the Koshoi. Koshoi literally means like deathless. Not 100% sure if those are like fully tied together. It would be interesting if the Valkyries themselves showed up. So obviously there's a lot to cover, and I think I might have missed at least some of it, but we can see that, like, I was pretty wrong. I was wrong about the Deathless being the Fiend, but I really feel like with what we know now, if we can start to mesh together what was happening with these timelines, we can start to piece together some additional information. So please, in the comments below, or in the Air Talker Research Discord, or in our Discord, let's go ahead and start a discussion where we try to figure out these various missing pieces, because I feel like, so like another piece that kind of hints at it is that like the Krulifer organization, it even suggested Krulifer was being imprisoned by the Thucker fleet until he was released, and there's so many weird connections that all of this tied to. So Cameltech and IFR and co-officials have raised suspicion in a wider interstellar community. The Carousel-backed IFR. Does this have anything to do with the Krulifer organization, or is this just random? It's interesting because those two organizations are now both part of Upwell. But either way, the point is that the Krulifer organization is a criminal group. Krulifer was a guy who was broken out of prison because he had quote-unquote connections. Like, you see throughout, the more I looked at the lore, Handler Moratori is Ran Kavik. Ooh, that's spicy. I think that going back and stitching together these pieces, knowing that the Deathless is this like through line that has existed since 2000, YC110. The thing is that I guess the bottom line is that I used to think that the Deathless was this highly connected person throughout his whole thing, but it seems as if the Deathless almost inherited his connections through. Yeah, Moratori is one of the anti-Vanguard. They're one of the major agents for the anti-pirate forces. Yes, Koshoi come from the Koshoi of the Deathless. That's correct. But remember that means that the name the Deathless predates anything about the Triglavians, according to the lore. And actually, really, the idea, like the entire concept of the Deathless was before the Triglavians really started to show up too. Anywho, there's probably a lot more to this. I want to explore more to it. If there's anything I missed, please put it in the comments down below. But this is just kind of a dig into everything that was going on. I think that's about enough. Yes, the Triglavians also are definitely precursors. They come from... I think that the Triglavians come from somewhere between the First and Second Jovian Empire. It seems as if the Triglavians existed during the First Jovian Empire and possibly were already gone by the end of the Second Jovian Empire, according to their logs. One of the contract givers, Moratori, means those who are about to die. Yeah. No, the idea that Ran Kavik is part of this is actually something that it'd be really cool to pay attention to. This is actually... So, as an aside, one of the things I'm really, really excited about, considering they consider the Chamber of Tyrants to be the second iteration of Jove Empire means they knew about the first. More than that, though, Wizard, there was a Triglavian Jovian hybrid polity that seems to have existed during the first Jovian Empire. So not only do the Triglavians are aware of the first and second Jovian Empire, but it seems like they had direct connections to the first Jovian Empire. That went really, really poorly. But then now they only have records of the second Jovian Empire, almost as if they were watching them, but not part of it in the same way. We talked about this in some of our Who Are the Triglavians and Who Are the Drifters videos. Yeah, but I do want to kind of wrap this up for now. I'm sure this is a topic that we're going to be digging into more over the course of the next ever. The Triglavians were kind of the Janissaries. I think that the Triglavians could have been potentially the Talican who helped make the sleepers into the sleepers, but we'll see as time goes on. Let's talk a little bit about the other things that the Drifter that we know about the Deathless. Let's talk about something a little bit more concrete. New ships, new stuff. We have new things coming. We've got new information about it. There has been several videos that have come out. I'm not going to dig into each of them altogether. And we've already been going for quite some time about this, and I'm tired, and my brain is scrambled from trying to go through all of that lore. As you can tell, trying to keep it all straight is very difficult. I'm still going through the process of kind of putting things in order. So hopefully that was a good primer for people. I do have other videos, like the lore speed run, that you should check out for more information. But in the meantime, we have more information about the new weapons that are coming. There are 2 new Deathless ships. It's going to be the first Deathless ships to come out. It is the Cenotaph and the Thalos, rather. Now, this is the part I got right all those years ago. It was not hard to figure out. But the Deathless was leading towards our idea of a Kaldari Mimitar pirate ship line. So, while we're looking at these ships, the first thing to keep in mind is, okay, well, what level of power are we looking at here? We're looking at pirate ships, okay? So these are going to be comparable with Mortis Legion, Blood Raiders, etc. So they're going to be theoretically more powerful than even like normal Tech 1 ships or even Navy ships. But equal in power when it comes to pirate ships. Now, when it comes to pirate ships, there are 2 basic things to define pirate ships. The first is that every pirate ship has 2 different races whose skills go into their construction, right? And each of those races give a different bonus. So while normal T1 ships and Navy ships have 1 bonus or set of bonuses for their ship skills, the pirate ships have 2, right? 1 for each of its component races. The other thing that every pirate ship has is on top of those 2 bonuses, they always have some sort of cheat. So an example of this is that the Blood Raiders, their Nosses don't function like modern Nosses, they function like older Nosses. So if you get Nosferatu by a Blood Raider ship, it's going to drain your capacitor regardless of what your capacitor is. Normal Nosses can't drain past its own power level. Right? If your capacitor is higher than your opponent's capacitor, it doesn't drain anything. Not so for Blood Raider ships. Likewise, Guristas ships, instead of using a full flight of drones, they only use 2 drones, but each of those drones is worth like 3 drones each. So they're incredibly powerful drone weapon platforms. The Angel Cartel, each of their ships warp about 1 speed level faster. So their battleships warp closer to like cruiser speed. Their cruisers warp closer to frigate speed. Their frigates warp closer to interceptor speed. The Serpentis have incredibly powerful webs, right? They've got those 90% webs that make them strong. The Mortis Legion have bonuses to their scram range, which allows them to scram people well outside of the range in which they can scram back, which allows Mortis Legion to be some of the best kiting ships in the entire game. So while we're evaluating this stuff, we don't, and especially when we're looking at whether or not it's balanced, we got to remember that, like, it isn't a question of whether or not it's overpowered. The question is it more overpowered than, say, Garissa ships are, or Blood Raider ships are, or, you know, Santra ships are, with their different cheats. So we'll look at it, because there's an argument in both directions. So a few things that we've learned. There is only a battlecruiser and a destroyer so far. There is no frigate, cruiser, or battleship involved. They have mixed weapon systems. As you can see, there is 8 hard points for the battlecruiser and 6 hard points. Sorry, 6 high slots, not hard points, high slots. High slots for the destroyer, but there's only 3 turret hard points and 3 launcher hard points. Now, this is something that's pretty true with a lot of Mimitar ships. It used to be more true, and even some, I think some of the Angel ships, but maybe not. But the idea of, like, a mixture of turrets and missiles, the fact that there is like not enough hard points for there to fill it up with one weapon system. If you want to fill up your entire rack, you need to put in both weapon systems. Usually it's been like, okay, well, I've got mostly turrets and then maybe 1 or 2 launchers. Yeah, like the Rifter is actually a really good example. It used to be a mixed weapon system. A lot of Mimitar ships used to have mixed weapon systems to them. Over time, a lot of them have been more streamlined to make them more skill point friendly. The problem is that missiles and turrets have entirely different skills associated with them to make them work. So while it's kind of cool to have a mixture of both launchers and turrets, and it makes them very flexible, if the ship expects them to be able to use both in order to function, then that is a huge demand on skill points for somebody to be fully effective, right? If you look at it, like I have... if we look at my skill points, I have 39 million skill points in gunnery and 11 million skill points in missiles. So the problem is, now granted, I'm sure it's because I have more like large, like XL size weapons for gunnery. But the point of the matter is that these 2 weapon systems are basically mutually exclusive when it comes to skills. So you would have to have both of these things trained really high in order to be able to use this ship effectively. Otherwise, you're kind of being gimped either way. So that is a big piece of what makes this a high skill intensive ship just to start with, okay? However, this also means anytime we're talking about the Scarab pods and the damage capability of those Scarab pods, remember that the Scarab pods are not even the only piece of damage that is on the ship. They still have their turrets and their missiles, okay? So, you know, they're still going to be an effective fighter, even if you write off the Scarab weapon itself. You had to double your support skills training, let alone training 2 weapon systems baseline. Exactly. So, that's the first thing that I noticed out of this. The second thing I noticed is there are 3 turret hard points. There are 3 missile hard points. There are 8 high slots, which under normal conditions we would say, okay, well, there's 2 utility high slots. We see the combat, or we see the covert ops cloaking device, which is very strong. And then we also see the breacher pod. That means that I think that this is the only weapon system in the game that does not require a hard point of any kind. Now, there are some non-combat things, like I think that the Festival launcher can be fit as a utility high. but this is the first, like, full-on weapon system. Bombs don't need a hard point? Really? Are we sure? Is that true? Okay, well, fine. Smart bombs. But smart bombs don't take ammo. Hold on. You're probably right. You're probably right. Ugh, I can't put a bomb launcher on this thing. Hold on. Purifier. Yeah, you're right. The bomb launcher doesn't take a hard point. Fair enough. Okay. I'm dumb and bad. Okay, I got it. I was dumb and bad, but either way. I'm sure I could, like, figure out a way of, like, explaining it. Like, this is the only, like, continually activated blah blah blah, whatever. It is interesting that it doesn't take a hard point. Is all I'm saying. Jiminy Christmas. Okay. So, in addition to that, so that also means that while this battlecruiser can use a burst, like command bursts, it cannot have a full weapon complement, its breacher pods, a covert ops cloak, and a command burst. Something has to give in order for this to work, right? It also means that they can't necessarily have command or combat probes without giving something up. You don't have an extra utility high. Some people are talking about, like, oh, it's covert ops cloak, so it can get close to you. But, like, one of the big weaknesses of this ship is how short range it is. And it's like, oh, well, it can just get on top of you with covert ops cloak, but it'd be hard without having combat probes. So the point is that this ship is really cool, and it has a lot of potential for a lot of different things, but it by itself is not some sort of miracle worker. It works best if it has some sort of support. This shows its DPS as being 1,879. We can see that the maximum damage per second of the breacher pod is 1,000, and that's up from 800 because the ship itself has there is a new skill, Breacher Pod Clone Efficacy, which increases the damage per second of the breacher pod, right? So if we see this and we take this 1,800 DPS and we remove 1,000 DPS, we can kind of assume that the missiles and the turrets together combine for roughly 800 DPS, maybe a little bit better. Which, considering the fact that these are short-range weapon systems, is fine. It's good. Yeah, 700-ish DPS with drones. You're right, because it has 50 megabytes of drones. But if we see, hold on, we can see here that of the DPS, the drones are only providing 21 DPS. So, no, 858 of the DPS is coming from the turrets and the launchers, according to this. Now, we got to also pay attention to the fact that there is this thing down here, which appears to be a low slot that's influencing the breacher pod, because I've never seen that before, with the little arrows. And there's this missile guidance, or missile, is it called a guidance? No, it's whatever. The thing that increases the damage. So these are applying to that damage. But we can expect probably a battlecruiser, short-range DPS, 700 to 800 DPS on top of the breacher pod itself. The blank is reload reduction, not drones. Wait, what? Are you sure? Wait, is that how that works? I thought, hold on. No. So we could pull up here a Tristan, and we can see that the Tristan, fuck, I'm already losing my argument. I'm already losing my argument. Am I learning something today? It happens. Yep. Bully. I got confused. When you hover over the thing, it splits it out from drones and turrets, and I forgot that you have to hover over to get that information. So, yeah. That's the problem. Fine. Though I don't think that the reload, I think that it's safe to say, okay, yeah, you're right, that's with drones. Wait, oh yeah, I'm so dumb. Yeah, it says the drone's DPS down here. So 158 of the DPS is the drones, which makes this 700. That's what you've been trying to tell me this whole time? Good for you. Dumb for me. Got it. So the combine of the turrets and the launchers are doing 700 DPS. The drones are doing 158 DPS. And the breacher pod is doing 1,000 DPS. That is how that breaks down, pretty sure. Now, another thing to note is that while this is a shield ship, unless this rig... They don't show the fit, do they? So what we see here is that the shield resistances seem to favor explosive and kinetic over EM therm, which is pretty standard for shield resistances. We do have an invuln. Under normal conditions, we would see a 0% EM resistance. I don't know what to think about this when it comes to the defaults. Hold on, does it say it here? We have... No. Maybe? No. This thing has a better... Oh, yeah, this thing has 3 It's going to be hard to tell because they have 37 is multi-spectrum plus damage control. Are we sure? Because there's this one here. This shield hardener here. Maybe that's an extender. It could be an extender. The point is we don't actually know. A lot of shield EHP with only one hardener. Yeah. Well, I think these are both ancillary shield boosters. Hit simulate button. I'm looking at a screenshot. So either way, we can look at the bonuses. Yeah, so these have to be like ancillary shield boosters because they have a bonus to shield boosting amount. So you'd want to use shield boosters with it, not buffer. And then 25% bonus to stasis web of fire resistances. So webs will be only 75% as effective as they can be when using against them. Now, I honestly think that this web of fire resistance is something that they added almost as a necessity because we can see like, wait. I thought they said that there weren't going to be range bonuses. Because here's a range bonus. 25% bonus to medium projectile turret, optimal range and fall off, and missile velocity. I mean, it's not as big as some of the others, but it does definitely have the normal battlecruiser range bonus. Either way. And we can't see the range of the weapons because they don't hover over it. Oh well. To be fair, I briefly had the same thought earlier when it just deactivate the pods. Yeah. Really only limited to heavy assaults. What causes you to be... Oh yeah, because it's only medium projectile turrets and heavy assault missile damage. So you could theoretically have rails, but you can't really have heavy missiles unless you're willing to lose out half of your missile damage. 100% bonus to missile projectile turret and heavy assault missile damage is pretty good. Like, this thing's a gnarly, gnarly boy and designed to brawl. We also see, as part of the breacher pods, one of the weird things is that, like, the ammo is what sets the maximum duration and the maximum damage per second, right? As well as the maximum velocity. And we can see that, like, this... So, with the cruiser, with the battlecruiser does 1% of the enemy's health every second for 75 seconds to a maximum of 1,000 DPS, right? So if the enemy has 100,000 raw hit points, remember, not EHP, raw hit points. They have to have 100,000 raw hit points. Then it would tick for 1,000 hit points per tick, right? Whereas with the destroyer, we see that it's a lot less. The destroyer has a maximum tick of 200 hit points and only does 75% or 0.75% of it of the damage, right? So less than 1% of the person's health overall for 75 seconds. So while the battlecruiser one is going to do a total of 75% of your overall EHP or hit points before it's over, the destroyer one will only do 50 to 60%, I think. 3/4 of the same amount of damage, whatever that is. 3/4 of 75%. Like 60. Yeah, the Egyptian bugs burrowing into your... 56.25, yeah. So, not necessarily that critical, of like, not the worst amount of damage in the world. These also, as they pointed out, do not stack. Also, if you look, these breacher pods have a maximum flight time of 2 seconds and a maximum velocity of 3,000 meters per second, which with the battlecruiser version, it has maximum flight time of 4 seconds with a maximum velocity of 3,000 meters per second. Now, there is often some speed up time, so you don't exactly get the full distance, but roughly enough that it probably doesn't matter. So this means that the destroyer has a maximum operational range of 6,000 meters or 6 kilometers, where the battlecruiser has a range of 12 kilometers. These are very, very, very short ranges, and the implication here, especially with the green numbers, is that this is with all of the bonuses that you could get applied to it already. So these are going to be very, very short weapon systems, which is why I think that this web bonus was kind of put on them as a matter of necessity, because this is going to be the very first ship class. Here's another one that you guys are going to correct me on, but like this is the very first ship class that is designed to exclusively fight within web range, right? That's why it has to have a web bonus, because literally this ship class cannot even fight outside of web range pretty much at all. That's important to note. These are brawly boys. So their DPS is high, but not super high. The big thing that people are obsessed about right now is the fact that it continues to tick, and it does 75% of your life total over time. This does mean that buffer is a lot weaker to active reps, but the point of the matter is, first of all, 75 seconds is a long fucking time. A lot of things can happen in 75 seconds. If you dock up or if you jump through a Stargate, you shut it. You get rid of the dot. So, like 75 seconds is almost, actually 75 seconds is enough time to stop attacking, allow your aggression to go off, and then jump through the Stargate. So for all points, all intents and purposes, yes, it basically means that the dot applies throughout the course of the entire fight. But especially on a smaller scale, like with the Destroyer, most fights aren't going to last 75 seconds, right? So once the target is eliminated, your ability to survive just the dot, most ships should be able to survive 1% of their health being taken out every second, right? Any kind of active reps whatsoever should be able to assist. Any kind of Logi should be able to assist. This is just designed to go after things with high resistances. How would this work with 10% die? We'll find out. I have no idea. I can only speculate. So I don't think that this is like as deadly as people think it is. That's actually a really good point. Some people are saying, oh, this is going to destroy monitors. Remember, these guys have to get within 6 kilometers in order to be able to properly impact themselves. This really is like, this is the king of like third parties, right? You just decloak, shoot off a couple things, warp off, come back later, maybe at range to already shoots a couple of things. That's about it, right? Destroyers being able to damage bigger ships with dots would be nice. Yes, that is true. It does, and it does scale with max health to a maximum of 200 DPS for the Destroyer. It is true. So this is the big thing about the cheat, right? If we consider the Breacher Pod as being the cheat, I don't know if this is that much stronger than the other cheats that other pirate ships get, right? Can we really argue that the existence of a dot that you can apply on your opponent during the course of the fight, is that really stronger than a worm's drones? Than a Gila's drones? Than a rattlesnake's drones? I don't know about all that. Those fuckers are powerful. Like, this is a strong thing, and it does change the world. This is another big piece of this whole thing, is that this damage ignores resistances. So one of the biggest pieces of this whole thing is, not only is this the very first time that a dot has been added to the game, like a good and proper dot that sticks after the ship has been destroyed, after you warp off, etc., but it's also the very first time that true damage has been brought into the game. It's a whole nother kettle of fish. It's a new thing to deal with, but the key is that I believe that we already have the tools to deal with it. Really strong 1v1 gank brawler, but outside of that, it's very limited. Yes. And that's the thing, is that, like, yeah, it can get in there and it can cause some fucking havoc and it can third party and stuff, but your time is limited. You are, by definition, inside of warp and scram range, so it's going to be a high risk, high reward. And these things are also not going to necessarily be that cheap. We don't know 100% how you're going to be able to earn these things. But, they're pirate ships, so they're going to be at least the prices of pirate ships, which are pretty expensive. So it does. So let's look at the battlecruiser because it's simpler. The battlecruiser has 1,000 DPS maximum, does 1% of the enemy hit points. So if your opponent does not have 1,000 raw hit points, not EHP, raw hit points, because remember, resistance is completely ignored for the purposes of this conversation. So let's go ahead and look at some... An Abaddon. Yeah, this Abaddon... Well, this is actually probably a bad example, but... This Abaddon has a maximum hit points of 22,000... Let's just call that 32,000 EHP, or 32,000 raw hit points. So, if you hit this thing with a breacher pod, it would do about 320 damage per tick, which is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. 320 DPS is nasty. I think that's right. Yeah, that sounds right. But this is a battleship, right? Being hit by a battle cruiser. Now, let's see if we can find a better one. This one's plated. It has double plates. It still is about 50,000 raw hit points. So hitting this Armageddon with double plates and no rigs for some reason would be doing half of its maximum damage capabilities. So what they're basically suggesting is it's not going to do its maximum DPS unless it's hitting a capital. No, it's taking... It does not do... No, Jeff. It does not do damage directly to hull. That is one of the misconceptions about this. It does damage normal. The only thing about it is that it's percentage-based and it ignores resistances. The damage that is applied just like any other damage that's applied. It goes through shields, armor, then hull, okay? So, like the rattlesnake in the video that they showed, when it hit, it got it from full all the way down to about a quarter armor, because that's about 75% of its total raw hit points. So you got to look at its total raw hit points. So 11,000 plus 30,000 plus 10,000, right? This is 50,000 raw hit points. It has 125 EHP, but it only has 50,000 raw hit points. So the thing, if you hit this thing with a breacher pod, it would be doing 500 DPS with just the breacher pod alone. And again, it doesn't stack. So you could shoot this thing with a bunch of breacher pods. Wouldn't matter. It's still only going to take 500 DPS from the breacher pods. It still has the 700 or so DPS on top of that from its normal weapon systems. But A, those are also pretty close range. And B, those are damage typed, so can be resisted. And they have to be within cuddling distance to apply it. Now, you could decloak, hit this guy, and then warp off and be fine. However, hold on, actually. Yeah. However, the Covert Ops cloaking device still has a 10-second sensor recalibration time. And if we look at the post, we see that while it does get a reduction in its reactivation delay is cut in half. So basically when you get decloaked or when you decloak yourself, you can't recloak again for 15 seconds instead of 30. But what we don't have is a change in its sensor recalibration, right? If we go look at a stealth bomber, like a purifier, and we look at its bonuses, we see that in the traits, we have no targeting delay after cloaking device deactivation. And then if we look at like the Pilgrim, I want Deathless outfits too. If we pull up the Pilgrim, we see that. Oh. No, this doesn't have a recalibration. I thought I had a recalibration too. Is there anything else that has sensor recalibration bonuses? Either way, the point is that the blops. Thank you. So if we could look at let's just look at the Marshal. What do we know about how we're all going to team up on Eve Conquest tomorrow? That is true. Eve Galaxy Conquest does launch tomorrow. If you're interested, we are recruiting. Come have fun with us. We can see here. Did I pick a wrong one? Yeah, no targeting delay after cloaking device deactivation. So once again, Black Ops and Stealth Bombers can lock things as soon as they decloak. However, that same bonus does not apply to these guys. So, yep. So while this dude can sneak up on you while decloaked or while cloaked, it cannot even begin to lock you for 10 seconds after it has uncloaked. Now, I think that's actually not 100% true. Yeah, because bonuses, your cloaking skill can change that. My cloaking skill, I think you can reduce it by half with cloaking 5. No, that's cloak reactivation delay. That's the ability to cloak again. Sensor recalibration is the delay from when you decloak to when you can begin locking another target, right? The deactivation delay, or the sensor recalibration is the reason why when like a recon ship decloaks on you, you can warp off before they can grab you. Actually, that's a really good point. Legion. Yeah. Like if you've ever had a Proteus decloak on you and you've managed to warp off before they can lock you, that's why. Because like a T3 cruiser doesn't get that bonus to its sensor recalibration, but a stealth bomber can. That's why they use stealth bombers to like try to get that tackle on them, because they can decloak and immediately begin to lock. And they also are frigates, so they have faster lock times anyways. So yeah, it's 5 seconds after skill. Correct. So basically you have 5 seconds plus the amount of time it takes for this thing to lock you before you're fully locked. That's can be a lot of time depending on how on the ball you are, right? The other thing I think is fun is that these are immune to cargo scanners, which is a very Deathless thing, all the way back to the Boo Book. I really love the idea that the Deathless has this immune to all the cargo scanner thing. So the weird thing about this is, honestly, the big loser in this whole situation, in my opinion, you can reduce those to 5 seconds with rig. Yes, but at that point, you're also sacrificing something else for that too. I'm just saying it's not like there's other pieces to consider. That's all I'm saying. So, shoot, what was I going with this? I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like this is overpowered per se. I feel it's fairly well designed into the niche. It does cause us to have to consider certain things. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. There is a piece to all of this, which is the fact that the mercenary dens are supposed to be able to give us resources that are valuable to the Deathless. Now, some people have suggested, or people have said, I think even CCP has talked about the fact that those are going to be critical to the construction of these ships. But I have a theory that I want to point out to you. What's really going on here? Actually, take a step back. One thing that is interesting about Retribution, or not Retribution, about Revenant, the expansion that's coming out. I have historically been one of those people that's like, hey, there seems to be, maybe they're going to have more stuff that they'll announce later, and I'm always disappointed by that, right? Like what they announced at the very beginning, then they come out with the devlogs about each piece individually, and it's always kind of like the simplest answer for what it is. It's not like there's some grand attack on Jedha coming, or some big event occurring that, like, about Intaki and the constellations around it. These are all theories that I've had in the past. Usually ends up being wrong, right? Like, they tell us what's coming in the expansion. However, this time there is a couple of weird things going on. First of all, they have historically come out with a different chronicle or a different dev blog every week, and each one of them covers a single topic. The last few that they've come out with have been multiple topics at once. You know, we had the Skinner and the mercenary dens and corporate projects. We had, you know, this sort of stuff, you know, this weapon system, and they've been coming out with the videos that show off a lot of stuff, to the point of we are still a month out from this expansion almost, right? Hold on. What is the expansion? When is the expansion? Two weeks. We're 2 weeks away from this expansion, and yet we pretty much already know everything that's going on, right? Except what's going on. We don't, like, normally I'd be like, oh, well, there's a you know, blank sized hole in what's coming out. Maybe there's something else. But here's the thing. There is a drifter sized hole in this expansion that continues to pick at my head. Think of everything we know about the Revenant expansion. We've got new mercenary dens, we've got new ships, we've got a new weapon system, and we've got new Skinner tools and new corporate tools, right? And yet, the entire tagline of Revenant is strike at the heart of darkness. What does it say? Yeah, strike at the heart of darkness. And in the background of the video, you have the Jovian. Not the Jovian, but the Sleeper. In addition to that, we have the idea of encrypted infomorphs, which are coming from the mercenary dens. We have the Atavum, and we have the Lock, the mysterious structure in Zarzak. These are pieces that seem critical to what's going on that have not even begun to be explained yet, right? Like, if this expansion is all about fighting the drifters, which it has definitely suggested that it is, why is it that none of the information that we have about the expansion involves fighting drifters? Right? Like, the entire theming of the expansion isn't in the feature set. And I don't know why. It's almost as if there's a piece, there's this missing piece. What is the Atavum for? What is the Lock for? What are the infomorphs for? What do these things do? Why are we doing anything with them? That seems to still be missing. And one thing I do want to talk about when it comes to this is that what I suspect is a piece to this is the breacher pods themselves. This is the one piece of this that I think that we can probably make a pretty decent guess as to what's going on. When CCP says that the encrypted infomorphs from the mercenary dens are critical to part of the ship system, I don't believe that it has to do with the building of the ship itself. Now, these things could be valuable to the Deathless. The Atavum, the encrypted infomorphs, the hypercatabolic clone tissue. These are important to the Deathless, and therefore the BPCs for these new ships could easily be a reward for those things. That's probably a piece to all of this. But let's think logically about what we're looking at here. Breacher pods shoot out a pod filled with people, assault teams. It hits the thing, and then it's apparently flooded with guys as part of the breacher team. That seems to be what they're suggesting here, right? If we go and look at the hypercatabolic clone tissue. Oh, hold on. Actually. Hypercaffeinated quaif for your boarding parties. It's worse than that. We see... Get ready for risk and riches with mercenary dens, small but volatile outposts anchored in orbital skyhooks around temperate planets. Use these dens to turn workforce into encrypted infomorphs, highly prized by the Deathless, and open the doors to smaller, fast-paced skirmishes. They're not just treasure troves, though, but power kegs, blah, blah, blah. And then the Scarab Breacher Pod, a fearsome tool that sends Shrieker clones to wreak havoc on enemy ships, tearing through shields, armor, and hull from the inside. All right? So let's look at this. This is one of the new things that have shown up with everything else. The hypercatabolic clone tissue. While the Atavum are good, and turning in 30 Atavum will get you rewarded by the Deathless, as what we discovered is that this hypercatabolic clone tissue, you can go and watch my Kill Two Birds with One Filament video. This thing is worth a lot. It's by default worth 250 million ISK. And then when you turn it into the Deathless, you get a premium crate where I got 230 million ISK worth of Deathless tokens and the BPC for the implant and the BPC for the hacking module and 57 of the new combat probes. So huge jackpot payout for getting a hypercatabolic clone tissue. This is probably one of the most valuable things to the Deathless, period. I mean, if you think about it, it's like 300 Atavums would be the equivalent of one hypercatabolic clone tissue as far as value goes. So this says, this human genetic material shows signs of extreme modifications previously only observed in Jovian samples. Genetic modeling extrapolates that a clone grown with this sample would have a metabolic rate 100 times higher, produce 10 times more adrenaline, and have drastically lower reaction time. It is, however, incredibly unstable and would likely die before taking its first breath. Despite its instability, this genetic material represents an important research step. Blood Raiders and SOCT are keen to acquire it, but the Deathless Circle has expressed an even greater desire to recover these samples. So, what the objective? The den spawn? The mercenary den themselves is the objective. So, do you think that they'll be taking hypercatabolic clone tissue trades off the table? Yeah, probably, maybe, probably. I'd say probably. Well, maybe not the buy orders, but definitely the trade for the Deathless crates. Yeah, we have the anarchy mechanic, which is basically just corruption for nullsec. Oh, that's right. That's the den spawn sites for you to run to keep the anarchy down. We'll get more information about that later. But my point is that, so we have this new kind of clone that has 10 times as much adrenaline and has faster reaction times. However, will likely die before taking its first breath. Let's say, over the course of the next couple of weeks, the Deathless continues their research on these clone tissue samples and develop a new kind of clone that can last a little bit longer than one breath. Let's say maybe we could even get these clones to survive, let's say, 75 seconds. 75 seconds of life before the clone just fries out completely. That's kind of useful. Okay, well, we have these clones. They will survive for 75 seconds. But clones are just like, that's just the tissues, right? That's just the body. We need a mind to put in it, right? But the method for sending out vanguards, I mean, that's a little expensive for these things, right? I mean, Vanguard clones required special implants to allow them to puppet it from the fulcrum. And while Arkham soldiers are used to dying over and over again, as it was pointed out on my Discord yesterday, making them go through 45 seconds of horror before death, or 75 seconds of horror before death over and over and over and over and over again would probably be pretty bad on somebody's psyche. But what if we kidnapped a whole bunch of Upwell clones and used them instead? Right? Like, on all these planets, Upwell have been doing these operations to recruit workforce. And they're using some very cheap and crude methods for how these infomorphs are maintained, how they are distributed, and how they control their stuff. So if we were able to, say, hijack a whole bunch of those infomorphs, we could then plug them in to our new super clones and basically smash a pod full of these guys into an enemy ship and then wake them up, pump them full of 10 times the adrenaline that a normal human has, and let them just go roughshod inside of the station or structure or the ship until they burn out and die. Who cares? They have 75 seconds of the most horrific life that they've ever had after waking up. They thought they were part of some Upwell consortium clone program, and then suddenly, and then they just fuck things up, and then they all die. Congratulations. I personally believe that the breacher pods will require encrypted infomorphs to build the ammunition. And the smoking gun, in my opinion, is if you look at the breacher pod's ammo, you will see that on, whoop, no, that. If we zoom in on, oh my God, there we go. If we zoom in on the breacher pod ammo, we can see what appears to be like people in the background. These are the infomorphs that are part of this breacher pod. We are using Upwell Consortium infomorphs as ammo. That's cool. Kind of makes me feel guilty for liking it. Makes me like it more. Yeah. Well, breacher pods can't be used. First of all, breacher pods can't be used on structures. Second of all, nukes are actually a very common weapon system in EVE. Like, there are nuclear tipped weapons, there are nuclear warheads. Like, what do you think causes a lot of the EM damage that we deal with? So, But what do you guys think? Have I missed anything? Is there any secrets behind the Deathless that I may have missed? Is there anything about these ships that I may have missed? Honestly, if anybody wants to sit down, now watch the Upwell PR piece with the disabled Caldari veteran again about a second chance. I know. I love it so much. I love it so much, Satonia. I love it so much. It's so good. It's like, oh, Hope, we're going to give you a second chance. Horror! Like, oh my god, it's so dystopianly nightmarish. I love it. And that's the thing, is that, like, somebody was talking about how, like, oh, well, we must be getting these, like, during the last Vanguard fight, we were finding infomorphs, and, like, the Deathless has been wanting us to bring him infomorphs for quite some time. And so some people were asking, like, oh, well, are they making more Vanguard? But if you look into the lore of the Vanguard, all of the Vanguard are first and second generation war clones. They're already war clones. They require being war clones for the further modification to become Vanguard. So it doesn't seem like we're kidnapping a whole bunch of people just to make more soldiers, like more Vanguard soldiers. We are kidnapping people, or at least infomorphs, in order to shove them into boxes to attack enemy ships. The lore you keep coming back to remains annoying? Which one is that? Oh, you have opinions, but you're driving. We'll have to talk about this upcoming this week. I will say, so tomorrow is EVE Galaxy Conquest. I'm going to try to see whether or not I can stream any of that. Not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to. I may. So this week, one of my goals is I'm going to be streaming on my secondary channel, because there's also the Halloween event for Phasmophobia. So that is part of my goals for this week. But we will be covering all of this as we go forward. So make sure to subscribe to the, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. If you want more information about my second channel, which I don't have it ready to link right now, but make sure to come onto the Discord for all of the latest news. Maybe CCP will give us a way to farm Sanche zombies for this purpose. I don't know. I think Sanche implants have way too much control over their dudes. It would probably be a big problem to let Sanche, like, infect our systems. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any thoughts, theories, ideas, things I should cover or maybe have missed in all of this. I know there's a lot going on, and flipping my entire table, the table over on my entire lore theory about the Deathless was a fun exercise last week. So I hope that today's rambling, staggering through everything I've kind of been thinking about for last week has been valuable to you guys and entertaining. If it has, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, because I think that this is going to be this is a video where we talk about a lot of really important stuff. Something tells me I'm going to be referring to this video for quite some time. I have actually been doing a lot of really useful, like, if you guys want something cool to do in EVE Online right now, I recommend you look up my Yeet exploration video and try it out right now, because, okay, data sites, like, there's a ton of extra data sites, both Crimson Harvest and Tetramon sites, that are worth more than the average data site. And then on top of that, in relic sites, you have the Atavum, and in the Crimson Harvest sites, you have the catabolic clone tissue. So there's a lot of additional value and a lot of really good sites in out there for exploration. So I'll say this: I've been doing Yeet exploration almost every day this week, and it has been just a smorgasbord of high quality sites, tons of ISK flowing in. It is a very good time to get out there into nullsec in some dead end system and find some sites. It's actually a pretty good time to find sites anywhere. Relic sites are worth a ton of ISK. Those Atavums only make them more worthwhile. The data sites, normally not as good of sites, but because of the fact that you have the Crimson Harvest and the other the Tetramon ones, those come with their own rewards that make those sites worth at least something. Yeah, just don't die like Cody. I recommend. This has been my go-to. My pacifier. I love this thing. I might do a whole thing about it sometime. I've got a covert ops cloaking device, sister probe launchers. Don't worry about the tractor beams and the interdiction nullifier, just in case. And then I have my relic and data analyzer, and I have a scanning acquisition array just because I already have plenty of scan strength, so I just wanted to make it so I could lock it a little bit faster. My armor repairer is the height of, let's say, optimism or pessimism. I don't even know why I don't have a compact instead of a Tech 2. The warp core stabilizer, the nanofiber, and the expanded cargo hold, and then dual hyperspatial velocity optimizers. Why? Because this thing goes zoom zoom. 22.3 AU per second maximum warp speed. It has covert ops cloak. It has interdiction nullification. It has almost 200 M3. I'm never fixing this thing's hull. I'm never fixing this thing's hull. That's a sign of honor. You know what hull damage on a pacifier means? Hull damage on a pacifier means somebody tried to kill me and failed. That's all this means. This is a badge of fucking honor. Something tried to kill my pacifier, didn't make it. Almost made it, didn't make it. Always, so it's going to stay right there. But yeah, I've been making quite a bit of money, having lots of fun out there. I recommend you do it too. Also, last weekend, we had the AT with Tuskers winning. Congrats to them. It's like a reverse kill mark. Exactly. I'm the one who got away, you pricks. Or it could mean that you played around. I think that's actually what it means. I honestly, if I remember correctly, that is what it means. But shh. Jeff, whose side are you on, Jeff? All right. But I think I'm going to call it there for today. Keep an eye on the Discord for up-to-date for what's going to happen over the course of the next few days. I want to cover EVE Galaxy Conquest if we can, ASAP, probably tomorrow. And I want to show off some of the new Phasmo update on my second channel, so keep an eye on that. But all that said, I have been Ashrathi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put EVE into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for checking it out, liking, commenting, subscribing. 07 to you guys. Share it with some friends. That's how we get people to know more about EVE Online, and a better, more knowledgeable player base makes a better EVE Online. That's what we're all here for. Go out there and have some fun. Don't listen to the haters talking about this or that problem with EVE. One of the things I find out is that when you just get into the game and start playing, you have some honest-to-God fun. And I hope you have some fun, too. Be happy to hear about it. You can comment down below on your adventures. I'd love to hear about those, too. I'm sure there was other things I was supposed to talk about today, but my brain's now scattered with everything that I've been trying to keep track of. So, on that note, I've been Ashrathi, the voice of New Eden. Buy some merch, and I'll see you in space! Wait, hold on. One more thing. We saw the cat. We saw the dogs. I want to show you guys the guineas. It's been a while since we did guineas. I figured that we did the cat and the dog at the beginning. We can do guineas now. Hold on. Make sure to like the stream, comment, subscribe, because these poor guineas, they survive off of your likes. They need your comments. They need your subscriptions. Think of the guineas. All right. Love you guys. 07.
Bring on the wrecking city